Chapter 451. Opportunity. Blood Phantom Vine. Yang Chen was startled, wondering what Abby meant when talking about the Blood Phantom Vine. What does it mean to be willing to give up the Blood Phantom Vine? The current Blood Phantom Vine was taken from Elder Hua Wanting by Yang Chen and carefully cultivated. It was irrigated with the blood of the masters of the Daching stage, and the corpses of the masters of the Daching stage were used as its fertilizer. A little bit from the weak seedling after the taproot was cut to the present. Compared to the time when it was taken from Elder Hua, the Blood Phantom Vine was only strong now. If it weren't because the speed of the Blood Phantom Vines was relatively slow and couldn't keep up with the body skills of most opponents, otherwise, this unrefined Blood Phantom Vine alone would be an extremely powerful weapon. At this time, Abby asked Yang Chen whether he was willing to give up the Blood Phantom Vine, but it was not a problem for Yang Chen. Not to mention that Yang Chen already has the Blood Phantom Vine flying sword. Even if he doesn't, compared with the lives of the two women, let's not mention giving up a Blood Phantom Vine, he could give up the elixirs in the whole medicine garden. I am naturally willing. Yang Chen directly gave Abby an exact answer. Can the Blood Phantom Vine solve the poison of the pulse-calming powdered medicinal pill? Please forgive this little servant's presumption. With Yang Chen's approval, the thoughts passed by Abby seemed to bring a hint of surprise. It was busy making a guilty complaint. After that, it didn't know what to do. After a while, Abby demanded, "Master, move the Blood Phantom Vine to the servant's side." Yang Chen's spiritual awareness firmly monitored the changes in the medicine garden. Like Abby asked, Yang Chen immediately ordered Azu, who was in the second layer of the medicine garden, to transplant the Blood Phantom Vine. Fortunately, the two women were both intelligent and familiar with doing this kind of thing. Almost at the request of Yang Chen, the Blood Phantom Vine has appeared next to the Blue Jade Vine. As soon as the Blood Phantom Vine appeared, under the medicinal energy of the pulse-calming powdered medicinal pill, suddenly it began to look wilted. In a short while, it became wilted and the vines crawled softly on the ground, looking listless, completely different from the flesh and blood planted on countless Daching stage masters' bodies. Next, Yang Chen's spiritual awareness saw the vines of the Blood Phantom Vine start to move slowly. Although it was moving, it moved very slowly, almost bit by bit, and finally the two kinds of vines came into contact. After it hit the vine of the Blood Phantom Vine, the Blue Jade Vine seemed to have a bit of spirit and it moved towards it like a poisonous snake preying on it, entwining the Blood Phantom Vine that it came into contact with. Under the investigation of Yang Chen's spiritual awareness, the Blue Jade Vine seemed to have suddenly grown spikes, which pierced into the Blood Phantom Vine, consuming the essence of the Blood Phantom Vine crazily. After only consuming a little, the spirit of the Blue Jade Vine became more vigorous and the vines that came into contact with the Blood Phantom Vine increased. Immediately, the whole process became faster and faster. Strange to say, the Blood Phantom Vine that originally sucked human blood. When its own blood essence was absorbed by the Blue Jade Vine, there was no sign of resistance and it collapsed on the ground, allowing the Blue Jade Vine to absorb it. It was only after a short period of time that the originally huge piece of Blood Phantom Vine was completely wrapped by the vines of the Blue Jade Vine and there was no trace of the Blood Phantom Vine appearance. Yang Chen's spiritual awareness keenly discovered that after absorbing the essence of the Blood Phantom Vine, the Blue Jade Vine became more and more energetic. It seemed that the pulse-calming powdered medicinal pill Kai scattered in the air had no effect on her. All the branches seemed to come alive. Abby also raised her head, no longer looking wilted. Regarding this, Yang Chen couldn't understand it. He really couldn't understand how many poisonous Blue Jade Vines could absorb completely different kinds of Blood Phantom Vines that were still poisonous. Among monster races, many times rely on swallowing other monster races to enhance their own strength. At this point, the Blue Jade Vine situation does not seem strange at all. Abby was basically a vine monster of a Blue Jade Vine. When Abby absorbed the essence of the Blood Phantom Vine, the vine had completely restored to its original state and was no longer affected by the pulse-calming powdered medicinal pill. But the absorption process wasn't over yet. All the rantons grew crazily entwined, wrapping the whole Blood Phantom Vine. Looking at this posture, it meant to swallow all the Blood Phantom Vine. "Master, this servant wants to swallow this Blood Phantom Vine, please forgive me, master." Abby's thoughts passed over again, clearly expressing her wishes to Yang Chen. Since Yang Chen had already made the plan to give up the Blood Phantom Vine, naturally he wouldn't care about this, not to mention that Abby really seemed to have the ability to deal with the pulse-calming powdered medicinal pill. After allowing Abby to continue, Yang Chen has been monitoring the process of Abby devouring the Blood Phantom Vine. This process didn't take too long, it only took 2 days, and Abby completely swallowed the entire Blood Phantom Vine. After swallowing the complete Blood Phantom Vine, the body of the Blue Jade Vine has undergone earth-shaking changes. The original emerald green jade-like vine has now become a slightly brownish-black color mixed with red and green, which looks like a black jade. As soon as the swallowing was completed, Abby couldn't wait to move all the flower fertilizer originally buried in the roots of the blood phantom vine to her roots, and then the black and red branches flew all over the sky, like a huge monster with teeth and claws. After a while, all the rantons were quietly retracted into place and turned into a quiet vine. Abby's figure also appeared. "Master, those medicinal kai have been completely absorbed." After showing up, Abby immediately reported to Yang Chen. Yang Chen was overjoyed, his figure appeared in the medicine garden in an instant, and he felt it for himself, there was indeed no trace of the pulse-calming powdered medicinal pill kai, and he nodded. "Abby, thank you for solving my problem for me." Abby saw Yang Chen appear and bowed to Yang Chen like he had given her some gift. In the past, the blood phantom vine was raised in the medicinal garden, even if Abby had the courage, she did not dare to take the initiative to go and swallow it. Moreover, the thriving blood phantom vine was not so easy to swallow. This time, she still borrowed the medicinal power of the pulse-calming powdered medicinal pill to move the blood phantom vine away from the nourishing place and disperse its vitality. With Yang Chen's permission, Abby swallowed the blood phantom vine, which could be said to be an increase in strength for her. On the other hand, the medicine garden seems to be more stable, at least Yang Chen has noticed that the second dimension has expanded a lot. "Get up." Yang Chen waved his hand to make Abby stand up. No matter how great Abby was, he couldn't leave the medicine garden now. Yang Chen was interested in what kind of power Abby, who had swallowed the blood phantom vine, could ignore the medicinal power of the pulse-calming powdered medicinal pill. Even Yang Chen doesn't have much raw materials needed for the pulse-calming powdered medicinal pill. Only 3 pills were refined, 1 pill was used in the medicine garden, and 2 pills remained. In the recent experiment, the blue jade vine that swallowed the blood phantom vine had completely ignored the efficacy of the pulse-calming powdered medicinal pill. At least in a short period of 2 days, all the pulse-calming powdered medicinal pill was eliminated in the medicine garden, it was already more powerful than the authentic antidote. But this alone, Yang Chen was already 90% sure about being able to handle Huqianyi this time. Now, Yang Chen still wanted to know what the blue jade vine has become. This servant also has the blood-sucking ability and toxicity of the blood phantom vine. Faced with Yang Chen's question, Abby replied with a light smile, and the joy could not be concealed on her face. "This servant did not have the strength to protect herself before, now I finally don't have to be afraid." It was an understatement, but Yang Chen knew that Abby's strength had been greatly improved. This could be seen from the expansion of the medicine garden space alone. According to Abby, Yang Chen abandoned the blood phantom vine. But in fact, he has gained a stronger subordinate that combines the blue jade vine and the blood phantom vine and still has a subordinate with intelligence, which was much stronger than the original blood phantom vine. Among other things, even if the medicine garden bottle was thrown outside, people who were able to get it would never be able to control it. Except for Yang Chen, no one could resist Abby's personal attack at this moment. Seeing that there were 4 or 5 hours ahead of Huqianyi's designated place, Yang Chen didn't care to learn more about Abby's changes. Instead, he asked Abby to be ready to remove the pulse-calming powdered medicinal pill power from his body at any time. After flying forward for a few hours, Yang Chen was very close to the destination. Not surprising, within a few kilometers around the destination, a formation circle was set up. Huqianyi was now standing in the center of the formation, but his appearance at this moment was nothing like Huqianyi of the Greatest Heaven sect. Beside him, there were 2 women lying down in the clothes of Zhanxian and Sun Qingxu. The 2 women lay quietly, there was no sound coming from them, only the slowly rising and falling of their chests could show that they were still alive. "Courageous." Seeing Yang Chen's flying shuttle from a distance, Huqianyi's voice was directly transmitted to Yang Chen's ears through the flying shuttle. "You have a heavy love and righteousness, it really is a good match for the 2 fairies. Enter the formation." At this moment, Huqianyi's formation was carefully arranged by him. Even if a master of the Daching stage enters the formation, he would be at his mercy. Even if the Daching stage master cannot be killed for a while, it was easy to trap several Daching stage masters of the same level for 2 hours. There were Daching stage masters in the Puryang Palace, but so what? With Sun Qingxu and Zhanxian in his hands, even if there were 10,000 Daching stage masters, it was impossible to prevent him from killing 2 severely wounded women who had no resistance in the formation. If they wanted the life of the 2 women, they have to obediently follow his instructions. As long as he entered the formation, the 2 hours supported by the formation were enough for Huqianyi to get what Yang Chen was holding and then escaped. At that time, he would meet with his apprentice and turn him into a 5th-grade alchemist. From then on, there would be no better alchemist than Zhanxian in the mortal world. As for Yang Chen, as long as he surrendered the gourd and alchemy secrets, it didn't matter whether he would save his life or not. Having lost the backing to become a fifth-grade alchemist, Yang Chen was just a younger generation junior in the Jidan stage and couldn't make much trouble. The purpose this time was mainly to get Yang Chen's gourd and alchemy secrets, everything else was trivial and there was nothing to worry about. Sun Qingxu and Zhanxian, if Yang Chen was obedient, he would leave them to him. Anyway, the two girls who were seriously injured didn't have the pill to bring them back to life and sooner or later they would just die. It was a good calculation, so the first request of the meeting was to ask Yang Chen to enter the formation. As long as he entered the formation, even if Yang Chen carried all the Daching stage masters of the Pure Yang Palace with him, it would not help. After entering the formation, Yang Chen was a meat on a chopping board and could be slaughtered at any time. Yang Chen didn't hesitate at all, he put the shuttle directly away and strode into the formation. Neither his master ancestor Wang Yong nor the old tree monster showed up, it was not the time to show up at this moment. The formation that Hu Qianyi arranged, Yang Chen knew, as long as the eyes of the formation were controlled, the people in the formation would have almost no room for resistance. People with strong cultivation bases could rely on their own cultivation bases to resist, or they could rely on magic weapons to survive the attack of the formation, but it was absolutely impossible to catch up with the person who controls the formation and leaves with one heart. Seeing that Yang Chen entered the formation, Hu Qianyi's heart stopped for more than half of the time and he no longer worried about Yang Chen's tricks. Come here. Hu Qianyi could now command Yang Chen any way he wanted and even decide Yang Chen's life or death. Yang Chen walked toward the eye of the formation where Hu Qianyi was. However, when the distance was almost 20 feet away, Hu Qianyi ordered Yang Chen to stop. Did you bring the things? Hu Qianyi stared at Yang Chen with a wide open mind, watching the surroundings vigilantly and asked calmly. Yang Chen didn't answer, but his hands flashed, a gourd appeared in his left hand and several jade slips appeared in his right hand. As Yang Chen took out these things from his Qiankin's bag, a silent medicinal Kai also centered on Yang Chen, quickly spreading to the surroundings. Go and get the things and see if they are real. Hu Qianyi suddenly ordered. Following Hu Qianyi's words, a figure appeared abruptly between Yang Chen and Hu Qianyi, it was Gao Jing. In the formations arranged by Hu Qianyi, Gao Jing did not dare to have any other thoughts. He walked up to Yang Chen obediently and smiled at Yang Chen. Master Yang, we meet again. It's you? Yang Chen said bitterly, staring into Gao Jing's eyes as if fire was about to burst out. I should have killed you back then. Who said you shouldn't have? Gao Jing grinned again and then stretched out his hand to snatch the medicine gourd from Yang Chen's hand. After he got it into his hand, he took a look and his face suddenly showed joy. Immediately afterwards, Gao Jing grabbed the jade slips in Yang Chen's other hand. After a few spiritual awareness investigations, he made sure to record a lot of alchemy techniques and prescriptions. After carefully checking the two things, Gao Jing turned his head and nodded at Hu Qianyi. Everything is real. Very good. Take it. Hu Qianyi's face also showed ecstasy, a fifth-grade alchemist will be born from his hands, why would it not make people ecstatic? Gao Jing didn't dare to neglect, holding the two things, turned around and walked towards Hu Qianyi. However, just after taking a step, there was a loud noise in the back of his head. Bang, Gao Jing's head exploded directly, like a watermelon being hit. If you're enjoying the content, please give it a like, comment, and subscribe to Fantasy World for more. Chapter 452. The Fate of a Daching Stage Master. Gao Jing's body fell to the ground neatly, revealing Yang Chen's figure. Yang Chen's blood-stained fist hadn't been completely retracted, he just stared coldly at Hu Qianyi not far away. A distance of 20 feet might be long when faced with the full protection of a Daching stage master, but for the pulse-calming powdered medicinal pill, it was just a short spreading distance. The first layer of the medicine garden has a radius of hundreds of acres, but the pulse-calming powdered medicinal pill was able to spread through it in less than the time it took for a stick of incense to burn, let alone a mere 20 feet. When the pulse-calming powdered medicinal pill was released, the brand new blue jade vine stretched out a thin branch and stuck it on Yang Chen's body. Of course, the role was not to suck blood, but to help Yang Chen resist the pulse-calming powdered medicinal pill's medicinal energy. Only when Gao Jing checked the authenticity of the things, the pulse-calming powdered medicinal pill had spread to the surrounding area. Before they knew it, Gao Jing and Hu Qianyi both inhaled a lot of medicinal Kai. Yang Chen was not merciful to Gao Jing. The last time he was collecting the medicine gourd, he was with a group of people. At that time, Yang Chen was just anxious to get the medicine gourd. He didn't have the same knowledge as he did now, and he did not expect to cause such harm to Zhanxian and Sun Qingxu. The punch blasted Gao Jing's head, and Yang Chen's gaze was also fixed on Hu Qianyi's body. The coldness in his eyes made Hu Qianyi feel chills all over his body. Without even thinking about it, Hu Qianyi immediately launched the formation. He was in the center of the formation, this formation was originally made to launch according to his will. Although the pulse-calming powdered medicinal pill was powerful, it was only aimed at spirit power. But it was not aimed at spiritual awareness, so when Hu Qianyi launched the formation, there were no obstacles. Overwhelming attacks gathered towards Yang Chen from all directions. Outside Yang Chen, a phantom of a big bell suddenly appeared, covering Yang Chen's entire body. On the periphery of the bell, there seemed to be two dragon shadows flying up and down. All the attacks encountered the two dragon shadows, immediately as if ice and snow hit the scorching sun, disappearing without a trace. Hu Qianyi could understand this kind of strange scenery, it was Yang Chen's magic weapon for body protection. He could only watch Yang Chen raise his hand and recall the gourd and jade slips in Gao Jing's hand and then started calmly, step by step he walked towards the center of the formation. Hu Qianyi hadn't expected that his formation circle that could trap daching masters had no effect on Yang Chen. In shock, he was about to summon his life source magic weapon to strike a fatal blow to Yang Chen, but suddenly found out in shock that the spiritual power of his body had disappeared completely without knowing. Not to mention calling out the magic weapon, even opening his storage bag was already as difficult as ascending to the sky. Seeing Yang Chen approaching step by step and the prearranged formation did not have any effect, Hu Qianyi couldn't help panicking. It was not known how many hardships he has experienced in his life, but Hu Qianyi has never felt such a panic once. Even if he was facing a major enemy before, he has never lost his mind, this was one of the reasons why he could live to the present, while the enemy has long since turned into bones. But he didn't know why, when facing a younger generation junior in the Jidan stage who came at him step by step, Hu Qianyi seemed afraid to face him. Perhaps Hu Qianyi used to be brave enough to face big enemies before, but this time, he used conspiracy and tricks to deal with a younger generation junior, because of his guilty conscience. Yang Chen would never let him go. Hu Qianyi had this clear understanding, if it was replaced with himself, he also would not easily let go of any enemy who dares to treat him like this. The formation was useless right now, and he has no spirit power in his body. The only hope for survival was to control the two girls Zhanxian and Sun Qingxu before Yang Chen walked over. Now Hu Qianyi regretted it to the extreme. If he knew this would happen, how could he throw the two women so far? Before he had the strength of the attaching stage. Not to mention placing the unconscious women a few meters away, even 10 times as far away, he could also behead the two women while moving. But now, there was only the thought, not the power. The panic was just sudden, Hu Qianyi had countless times faced life and death tribulations, so he had rich experience and immediately recovered his composure. Without thinking about it, he rushed towards Zhanxian and Sun Qingxu over there. As long as he could control anyone, with his body tempered by the thunder tribulation and the yin fire tribulation, he could kill the hostage in his hand at any time, and then it would be Yang Chen who had to be obedient. The moment Hu Qianyi rushed out, Hu Qianyi suddenly felt a guilty conscience, and a crazy thought flashed through his mind. What if Yang Chen insisted on killing him regardless of the life and death of the two women? Wouldn't it be ugly to die if you have the spiritual awareness of the daching stage, but without the spirit power of the daching stage? Up to now, Hu Qianyi didn't even think about it. How did he unknowingly get the move, resulting in no spirit power? But Hu Qianyi soon thought of the reason. There was only a certain unique medicine that could make him become like this. And Yang Chen, who happened to be the best alchemist in the mortal world, he was not surprised at all for him to be able to do this. Before that, Hu Qianyi thought of dealing with the two daching stage masters in Puryang Palace that might appear. He thought of the limited time that would prevent Yang Chen from notifying the Green Jade Immortal Island and the Blue Cloud sect, but he never thought that Yang Chen could still use alchemy to deal with him. In his eyes, a junior in the late Jidan stage without the help of a daching stage master, was he not the one to be judged by others? If he knew this a long time ago, he would have used another method or more directly let Gao Jing go to pick up the goods in Yang Chen's hands and even kill him as soon as he saw Yang Chen, then talk about it after killing him, instead of being so loose by letting Yang Chen walk so close to him. In any case, it was too late to regret now, the only thing he could do was to hope to be able to control either of the two women before Yang Chen slowly walked over. Moreover, this hope was not the safest. If Yang Chen doesn't care about the life and death of the two women, he would still be facing a dead end. At least Hu Qianyi asked himself if he encountered this situation, maybe he would make that choice. There was only such a slim hope, but Hu Qianyi still had to grasp it. If he could control one, he might be able to take a gamble. If he couldn't even do this, then he was really going to die here. For a moment, Hu Qianyi even regretted it a little. No matter what, Yang Chen was his lifesaver and he shouldn't have dealt with him like this. It was just a flash of this thought and he couldn't allow himself to have more of such thoughts. His body was already thrown out and pounced on Zhanxian, who was closest to him. When he saw that his hand was less than 2 inches away from Zhanxian, Hu Qianyi's body suddenly stopped in the air and then flew back quickly. It's not that Hu Qianyi didn't want to advance the final few inches and he couldn't fly with his current ability. The reason why his body stopped and retreated was because there were 5 hooks on his shoulders, waist and abdomen. The hooks were very cruelly hooked into Hu Qianyi's body and forced him back. Poor Hu Qianyi, as the elder of the greatest heaven sect and a dashing stage master, was carried in the air like a fish caught by a hook at this moment. No matter how hard he struggled, he could not break free from the 5 hooks of different colors. He didn't know what material the hook was made from, but it hooked his 2 lower ribs and 1 kneecap of Hu Qianyi. The red blood flowed down these 5 openings and it was instantly caught by a black and red vine on the ground. The vines absorbed it. Afterwards, the black and red vines were like a snake, wrapped around Hu Qianyi's body. The top vine even got directly into his body from the wound on Hu Qianyi's body, and the blood-sucking sound was heard, making it creepy. The blood of a living dashing stage master was the best tonic for the blood phantom vine, and the same was true for the blue jade vine that has fused and devoured the blood phantom vine. Not every supplement of this type could stay alive, and there are not many opportunities for this. Hu Qianyi's eyes widened directly, with a painful expression on his face. He tried to inhale, but he seemed to be unable to breathe, his complexion flushed, and it took a while to return to normal. But his whole person seemed to have become thinner at this moment, and his face became extremely pale. A lot of his blood was lost and his spiritual energy dissipated. Hu Qianyi seemed to have become a mollusk. Spreading softly on the ground, it was difficult to even move a finger. The aloof elder of the greatest heaven sect, the dashing stage master of all sentient beings, suddenly became such a bereaved dog, which made Hu Qianyi unable to accept. Where did it go wrong and how did it end up like this? The black-red vine was naturally Abby, but Abby was not so kind enough to detoxify Hu Qianyi. She just madly absorbed Hu Qianyi's blood, just like occupying all the blood vessels of wanting. Now the blue jade blood phantom vine has done the same thing. The body tempered by the thunder tribulation and yin fire tribulation was indeed stronger than the body of an ordinary cultivator, at least in terms of vitality. It was several times and dozens of times stronger. It manifested in the ability to regenerate. As soon as the blood was sucked clean, the body naturally began to make new blood crazily, and then the blue jade blood phantom vine got it very cheaply again. Of course, it was the 5-element hook that Yang Chen got from the Dragon Palace treasury. Yang Chen resented that Hu Qianyi dared to hurt the 2 women. He was merciless and was hooked by the 5-element hook to the bone. Break free, let alone that it pierced all the ribs and knees. Hu Qianyi now has great abilities and he still couldn't escape Yang Chen's control. If coupled with the entanglement of the blue jade blood phantom vine, even if an earth immortal or a heaven immortal comes, they would not be able to rescue Hu Qianyi from Yang Chen. However, Yang Chen couldn't pay attention to Hu Qianyi at the moment. He was more concerned about the injuries of the 2 women. Especially in the state of serious injury at this moment, the pulse-calming powdered medicinal pill also affected the 2 women, which was likely to further aggravate their injuries. Under the attack of the formation, Yang Chen couldn't go faster, relying on the golden bell's strong defense. He just resisted the attack of the formation and walked into the center of the formation step by step. Fortunately, the 2 women were in the center of the formation and the attacks of the formation would not affect them. So far, the injuries they have suffered were still the injuries originally given by Hu Qianyi. Also added the effect of the pulse-calming powdered medicinal pill. Both women were in a coma because of the serious injuries. He was furious like a gossamer. Without saying anything, Yang Chen flashed a flame in his hand and a 1,000-year-old ginseng turned into juice. Yang Chen didn't care about wasting it. He held a mouthful and through mouth to mouth it entered the mouths of the 2 women. No matter what, he would save their life first. The surrounding pulse-calming powdered medicinal pill kai was still raging. Yang Chen frowned slightly and with a thought, 2 fire dragons sprang out from his body and turned into a huge fire dragon hundreds of meters long in the wind, which went around for dozens of miles. There was a frantic burning around the area, completely burning the medicine kai of the pulse-calming powdered medicinal pill. Not all flames could easily resist the medicinal effects of the pulse-calming powdered medicinal pill, but it was clear that the yin-yang burning heaven fire was not within this limitation. Soon, the surrounding medicine kai disappeared completely. Yang Chen took the fire dragon back and then released his master ancestor Wang Yong and the old tree monster from another space. Hu Qianyi was already in a coma and there was no one to control the formation, so it had completely stopped the attack. The 2 had just seen what happened outside in Yang Chen's space. As soon as he came out, without saying anything, the old tree demon immediately began to take root in the formation. The powerful tree roots quickly wrapped up all the area of the formation. Hu Qianyi's meticulously arranged formation was directly cracked by the old tree demon from the center of the formation violently, and it became fragmented. The materials of the formation scattered all over the floor. Zhanxian and Sun Qingxu were moisturized with the 1,000-year ginseng liquid and their complexions became a little ruddy. Only then did Yang Chen carefully inspect the physical condition of the two women. Yang Chen and the two girls had a marriage contract, so there was no pressure to do these things, and there was no taboo. Upon checking, even Yang Chen couldn't help but breathe in a cold air. He didn't know what resistance Zhanxian and Sun Qingxu had put up at the time. Hu Qianyi actually injured the two women so badly. At least half of the meridians in Sun Qingxu's body were broken, while Zhanxian was more severely injured. 90% of her meridians were destroyed. According to popular saying, the cultivation of the two women has been ruined by Hu Qianyi. Losing the nourishment of their powerful spirit power, the two women's original youthful and beautiful appearance began to gradually change. In less than a month, it would look like they were already two middle-aged women, and this change would intensify with the passage of time. Within a year, the two women would become ordinary people at their original age and looks. Hu Qianyi took the two women as hostages and calculated that they were injured like this, and he still directly targeted the talented disciples of the two major sects. Whether in terms of protecting his own face or the prevention of retaliation by the two major sects, he has never planned to keep Yang Chen and the two women alive, so they have not been treated. The two women have been dragged to the present and their injuries were getting worse. If Yang Chen came a few days later, maybe he would not need to wait for Hu Qianyi to do it and the two women would have their souls curled up and return to the underworld. Fortunately, after swallowing the ginseng liquid, the condition of the two women has also eased and the pulse-calming powdered medicinal pill was also flattened, dissipating the messy spiritual energy in the two women. It seems that they were no longer dying. If you're enjoying the content, please give it a like, comment, and subscribe to Fantasy World for more. Chapter 453. Appearance is more important than cultivation base. But the 5th grade Lingzi mushroom jade pill in hand, as long as the two women still have a breath, Yang Chen could be sure to save their lives. However, now that the two women's cultivation base was completely destroyed, it was authority issue, and it would be more troublesome. The top priority was to save the lives of the two women first. The effect of the 5th grade Lingzi mushroom jade pill was too strong, and the two women whose cultivation bases have been ruined would not be able to bear it. Deficiency was not a tonic. If the spirit power contained in the pill was too strong, it was not for saving people, but for killing. So he took a little bit from the previously refined 1st grade Lingzi mushroom jade pill, 10 portions were cut and 1 portion was given to each of the two women. There was nothing that could be done about it. The Lingzi mushroom jade pill of the 1st grade could be used to heal injuries below the wielding stage, and at this moment, the two could only absorb this much at most. The medicine was fed by Yang Chen's mouth, first dissolving the pill and then transferring it into the mouths of the two women, just like putting the ginseng solution before. It was a pity that the two women were unconscious now, otherwise it would become another charming scene. The pulse-calming powdered medicinal pill was used first, which was very good for the stability of the injury. Without the destructive power of the violent spirit power that rushes from the left to the right in the body, the efficacy of the pill could be completely concentrated on the treatment. The Lingzi mushroom jade pill has a very good effect. After a while, Zhanxian's mouth began to moan slightly and there was also an expression of pain on her face. Although it would make her feel more painful than the initial coma, the recovery of her feeling was undoubtedly a precursor to the recovery of the injury. Sun Qingxu next to her was still in a coma. However, the injuries of the two people were different. Zhanxian's injuries were much heavier, with more than 90% of her meridians were damaged, so she still had severe pain during the treatment with the pill. Sun Qingxu was much better and was slowly healed in the coma. For the time being, the injuries of the two women were stable and would not get worse in the short term. Yang Chen quickly found 2 boulders, sculpted them with a flying sword and carved them into 2 not-so-beautiful bathtubs. Then carefully put the two women into them separately and then used some 4C's mysterious coral liquid to soak the two women in it, leaving only the head and face. After all this was done, Yang Chen took the bathtub with the two women into the medicine garden and around the two women, all the 10,000 years old ginseng and 10,000 years jade mushroom were transplanted. The spirit medicine spirit power was absorbed by them. That little spirit power was enough to nourish the two women for now. After setting up the two girls, Yang Chen finally came to Hu Qianyi. At this moment, Hu Qianyi had already been dying in the hands of the blue jade blood phantom vine. Without strong spirit power support, he was weak as if he had been ill for 100 years. He could not move a bit, even worse than Elder Hua back then. As soon as Yang Chen waved his hand, Abby knowingly took all the vines of the blue jade blood phantom vine back. After getting a chance to breathe, Hu Qianyi's body immediately began to slowly recover and after a while, there was blood on his face. It was indeed a body tempered by the thunder tribulation and yin fire tribulation. Even without spirit power support, it still has such a strong ability to survive. However, Hu Qianyi was still only alive at this moment. As for running away, in front of Yang Chen, Wang Yong and the old tree demon, he couldn't even think about it. Not to mention that he was so weak now, even in his peak and heyday, it was impossible. Seeing the old guy's weakness, Yang Chen wiped Hu Qianyi's mouth with the remaining 1000-year ginseng liquid that was still on his hands. After he recovered a little bit of vitality, one hand picked up Hu Qianyi and the other hand began to slap him wildly left and right. But this series of slaps, Yang Chen almost reduced the strength of his whole body, using only the slightest wave of his hand. Even so, Hu Qianyi almost fainted by a dozen slaps from the front and back, his head blew softly, his mouth was open, and a dozen bloodshot teeth flew out directly. Hu Qianyi's status was special, and so Yang Chen still doesn't want him to die. He wanted to keep Hu Qianyi and send him to the two great sects to let the two great sects know who attacked their disciples. This would definitely be a slap in the face of the greatest heaven sect. This kind of thing among the major sects was no secret. There was no need to force Yang Chen to use whatever means. What big people like most was the saying that people who make big things don't stick to small things. Just being a big bully, Hu Qianyi bullied two Jidan stage juniors with the respect of a master of the Daching stage and wounded two women in this way. It was enough to make the greatest heaven sect's reputation discredited and he could no longer lift his head. As for the apparent murder of another disciple after being arrested, it could be further investigated. Even the greatest heaven sect must account for it. It's one thing not to be caught, but it's something you couldn't afford to get caught for. After he slapped Hu Qianyi wildly, Yang Chen still remained angry. Wang Yong and the old tree demon didn't mean to stop him at all. They didn't know Hu Qianyi's true identity, but they didn't mind bloody revenge for anyone who dared to fight against Yang Chen. Yang Chen easily controlled a Daching stage master, but Wang Yong and the old tree demon were not surprised at all. Along the way, Yang Chen was carefully refining a medicinal pill. They all saw that he wanted to use this pill to deal with this guy. Later, Yang Chen burned a radius of tens of miles, making their guess closer to the truth. Regarding Yang Chen's seemingly unconscionable means, whether it was Yang Chen or the old tree demon, they all felt it was right. The opponent was a Daching stage master, and he used such despicable means to coerce Yang Chen. Even if Yang Chen used despicable means to deal with him, no one sympathized with Hu Qianyi. This guy is Hu Qianyi, the elder of the greatest heaven sect. Yang Chen didn't reveal the identity of Hu Qianyi until this moment. The old tree monster had no awe for the greatest heaven sect at all, so he didn't react to this name. But when Wang Yong heard it, he was taken aback. The elder of the greatest heaven sect and the guy who Yang Chen had saved his life, was this revengeful? To do this kind of thing, he attacked the two younger generation juniors of the Blue Cloud sect and the Green Jade Immortal Island to threaten a Jidan stage junior. It was an unprecedented scandal. Retaliation for grace, bullying the small by the big and disregarding morality, taking out any of them was a terrible sin, and Hu Qianyi has done it all at once. Just take this guy back, let Sect Master Lu and Island Master also see what kind of face the people of the greatest heaven sect have. Yang Chen's face was still full of anger. I want to see, this time too. How does the greatest heaven sect plan to explain this matter? The two women were seriously injured, so Yang Chen rushed back to the Pure Yang Palace carefully along the way. When he came back, it was at least twice slower than when he went. Along the way, Yang Chen was careful to treat the injuries of the two women, putting a tenth of the medicinal pill into the two women's mouths every day. When they returned to the Pure Yang Palace, the injuries of the two women had been completely stabilized. There was no danger of deterioration. Sun Qingxu had also woken up, but her body could not move yet. Zhanxian was still in a coma, but she was no longer in the kind of pain and dissatisfaction, but eased down, as if in a dream. Seeing the appearance of the two women, even the palace master was shocked. He was not surprised what the purple liquid that Yang Chen used to soak the two women was. He eagerly put his hand on the wrists of the two women. After a while, his face became gloomy almost with frost. The cold plum fairy and dancing snow fairy, one of them had half of her meridians destroyed and the other had 90% destroyed, which almost concluded that the two women had become useless. The two women were implicated because of Yang Chen. How could the Blue Cloud sect and the Green Jade Immortal Island give it up so easily? Regarding Hu Qianyi, who was captured and brought back, the palace master even had the heart to kill his whole family and punish him. He was the elder of greatest heaven sect and he had to shame himself and bring a lot of trouble to the sect. He also implicated the Pure Yang Palace. He really deserved to die. Two promising cultivation geniuses, stunningly beautiful fairies, were ruined by him. Not to mention the Blue Cloud sect and the Green Jade Immortal Island, even the palace master of the Pure Yang Palace felt it was a pity. Although the girls were saved and the culprit was also caught, the latter matter was the bigger trouble. The two major sects didn't know the news yet, but they would definitely send high-level sect members to come over. Seeing this picture of the two women, they don't know how they would react. Qianyi's capture also meant another big trouble. Was the Pure Yang Palace going to show its teeth to the greatest heaven sect and fight to the death? The time was not yet right, but something like this happened. How would the greatest heaven sect react? All this gave the palace master a headache. Is there any hope for the two fairies? At this time, the palace master could only put the hope of solving the problem on Yang Chen. If the two women could recover, then at least it would be relatively easy to explain to the two major sects. If the two sects were united with them, they may be a battle with the greatest heaven sect. Yang Chen was wondering how to repair the damaged meridians of the two women along the way. In fact, it was not difficult to restore their meridians. It was rare to restore their cultivation base without damaging the Tao foundation. Yang Chen was not willing to let the two future peerless experts quietly die because of him. I will try my best. Yang Chen could only answer like this. Both Zhanxian and Sun Qingxu were originally in the Jidan stage and haven't experienced the thunder tribulation and yin fire tribulation to temper their body. Without the strong resilience of masters in the Daching stage, the two women simply couldn't withstand the 5th grade Lingzi mushroom jade pill. Although there were many 10,000 spirit medicines in Yang Chen's medicine garden, none of them could restore the two women to their original condition. The best way Yang Chen could think of now was to heal their injuries and then have them cultivate from scratch. Although with the qualifications of the two women, as long as it does not damage the Tao foundation. Even if they started from scratch, because of this ordeal, their thinking would be more mature, it may be a blessing in disguise, and their future achievements may be higher. 200 or 300 years of hard work was not worthwhile for a Great Principle Golden Immortal. However, Yang Chen still hoped that they could cultivate with Gao Yu and Gongsun Ling to improve their cultivation base in a balanced way. Perhaps it could be done with some drastic methods, but it requires certain risks. For the time being, Yang Chen does not plan to consider it. However, Qianyi had to be dealt with, not to make him discredited, not to be infamous, and not to pull the greatest heaven sect from morality. Yang Chen was never willing to rest. Under the meticulous care of Yang Chen, Gao Yu and Gongsun Ling, Sun Qingxu and Zhanxian finally woke up one after another, only one day apart. The injury has been completely stabilized, and under the nourishment of Yang Chen's pill, the appearance of the two women has not changed to become older, but they still look like middle-aged women. When Sun Qingxu woke up, she immediately noticed the condition of her body. Seeing Yang Chen, she knew she was safe and she felt relieved. But the first thing that followed was to ask for a mirror. After Sun Qingxu saw what she looked like in the mirror, she seemed to have collapsed. She shut herself in a room and never wanted to come out again. The more beautiful a woman was, the more she values her appearance, especially in front of her sweetheart. When the cultivation base was still there in the past, the beautiful face and the moon looked unparalleled, but now she was no longer the beauty of the past. How could Sun Qingxu not be heartbroken? Zhanxian's reaction was slightly better. After this woman who has always been cold-hearted noticed the condition of her body, only a trace of unspeakable complex emotions flashed in her pupils, and then everything went as usual, still as cold as that. However, everyone could tell that Zhanxian still cared about her face, at least when facing Yang Chen, she always intentionally or unintentionally turns her face aside to prevent Yang Chen from seeing it. Zhanxian was like this, and Sun Qingxu refused to let Yang Chen enter even the door and blocked him outside, leaning against the door, as if she would never see Yang Chen again. I don't want to see you. In the room, Sun Qingxu cried out to Yang Chen outside the door, I don't want you to see me now. I don't deserve you. At the end, Sun Qingxu shouted as she was already crying. Sun Qingxu, who was about to get married, encountered this kind of catastrophe. Sun Qingxu, who consciously couldn't recover her appearance, no longer had the courage to face Yang Chen. Don't worry, I will let you recover. Yang Chen certainly knew why Sun Qingxu was crying so much. He himself was not a person who judged people by appearance, and he would never change his heart because of the changes in Sun Qingxu and Zhanxian's appearance. But Yang Chen still underestimated how much a beautiful woman values her appearance. It seemed that even the loss of her cultivation base cannot measure up with the shock of her face getting old. Really? Sun Qingxu stopped crying in the room when Yang Chen said so and asked suspiciously. Since we met, I really think I haven't lied to you yet, right? Yang Chen could only give a wry smile and asked Sun Qingxu from the door. This sentence worked enough. In Sun Qingxu's mind, the sentence I didn't lie to you that Yang Chen said when she was with him flashed several times, and finally she chose to believe Yang Chen. Can you really restore our appearance? Sun Qingxu opened the door as quickly as possible and asked Yang Chen in surprise. If you're enjoying the content, please give it a like, comment, and subscribe to Fantasy World for more. Chapter 454. The Anger of the Two Sects. Yang Chen was absolutely sure of restoring their appearance. After killing Chang'at and the 9 days of killing heaven profound females on the Immortal Executioner Stage, they all left their unique face-retaining pills and countenance-halting heart methods, which were most suitable for Sun Qingxu and Zhanxian at this moment. When she heard that Yang Chen had a way to restore their appearance, even Zhanxian, who seemed to have accepted the status quo, was a little happy. The expression of surprise on her face cannot be concealed anyway. Seeing the situation, Yang Chen finally understood that no matter how high a woman was, no matter how indifferent she was to her appearance, she still puts her appearance in a very important position in her heart. Fortunately, Yang Chen has the materials to refine the face-retaining pills, and they were all good materials that had matured for thousands of years. At this time, it was simply the most suitable place to use it. As Yang Chen was planning to refine the face-retaining pills, the people from the Blue Cloud sect and the Green Jade Immortal Island have already arrived. Both sides were very surprised and worried when they received the news. The two sects didn't go to where Hu Qianyi asked Yang Chen to meet him and simply meet at the Pure Yang Palace. The person who came from the Blue Cloud sect was Sun Qingxu's master, Daching Stage Elder Hua Wanting, along with the Blue Cloud sect's law enforcement hall master, who was also the Daching Stage Elder Shi Yan. The people from the Green Jade Immortal Island were even more surprising. In addition to Zhanxian's master, the island master also rushed to the Pure Yang Palace. Upon coming to the Pure Yang Palace, the experts of the two major sects were told that Yang Chen had rescued the women back. The news made people on both sides breathe out a sigh of relief. As long as the girls were fine, everything would be okay. However, when they saw Zhanxian and Sun Qingxu with their own eyes and thoroughly understood their current situation, the masters of the two major sects all jumped up in shock. The two promising disciples were crippled, they wouldn't let it go in any sect. The unlucky Hu Qianyi was brought out again. Although he changed his appearance and figure with his powerful cultivation base before he traveled in front of these masters, he could not hide his true identity and was immediately recognized. Hu Qianyi. After the island master of the Green Jade Immortal Island recognized Hu Qianyi's identity, her expression changed suddenly, as if she couldn't believe it. She suppressed her anger and calmly said to Hu Qianyi, "Okay. What a great elder, what a daching stage master." The tone of speech was very slow, but anyone could hear the hatred of the island master through the gritted teeth. The elder of the dignified Greatest Heaven sect actually did this kind of unscrupulous thing. He made a move against a junior, it was impossible to justify in any case. Shi Yan and Hua Wanting were not as good as the island master in controlling their anger. Although they were both masters in the daching stage, they were both very hot-headed characters. Elder Hua didn't care if Hu Qianyi had a dozen teeth lost in his mouth. She slapped Hu Qianyi's mouth and nose when she went up to him, and the remaining dozen teeth all fell out. If it were not for having Hu Qianyi as evidence, Elder Hua would love that she could just kill this guy and avenge her apprentice. Whether it's the Green Jade Immortal Island or the Blue Cloud sect, they both hated Hu Qianyi and the Greatest Heaven sect. They have seen shameless people, but they have never seen anyone more shameless than the Greatest Heaven sect. In order to deal with an alchemist who was a junior in the Jidan stage, he turned his anger on other sects, and he didn't dare to be fair and honest, and only sneakily made his move after he changed his appearance. How was this something that the leaders of the Dao sects do? At this time, even if Hu Qianyi wanted to argue that this matter has nothing to do with the Greatest Heaven sect, it was useless. Who would believe it? He was afraid that the sect master of the Greatest Heaven sect could only pinch his nose to recognize the situation. Now it's not just Yang Chen in the Pure Yang Palace, Zhu Xiuyuan was arrested, Hu Qianyi was arrested, there were the two direct parties Zhanxian and Sun Qingxu. Even if Hu Qianyi could deceive the dead, he couldn't deny the things he had done. In front of Zhanxian and Sun Qingxu, the island master still maintained some restraint, but when they were discussing in the Pure Yang Palace hall, before everyone could speak, the island master already slapped the table heavily and shouted, "This matter is not over." The poor table turned directly into powder and disappeared in the wind. It couldn't be helped that the island master was angry. Zhanxian was the best disciple received by the Green Jade Immortal Island in the past 1,000 years. In the future, she would be the future hope of the Green Jade Immortal Island, and she was crippled. How could people not be angry? The Greatest Heaven sect must give an explanation for this. The Blue Cloud sect's elder Shi Yan was even more angry and immediately threatened, "If they can't restrain their disciples, I will discipline them." Although Sect Master Lu of the Blue Cloud sect was not present, Elder Shi Yan, as the head of the Law Enforcement Hall, also represented the opinions of Sect Master Lu to a certain extent. This matter would never be let go. The two great sects have never had such resentment towards the Greatest Heaven sect as they do today. Their two genius disciples were destroyed like this. The painstaking effort used to cultivate them by the sect for hundreds of years was destroyed like this. If the two great sects swallowed this issue, who would join them in the future? With the presence of the island master, the Green Jade Immortal Island immediately sent out a sternly worded note and sent a special person to the Greatest Heaven sect. It was a note personally sent by the island master. Sect Master Lu of the Blue Cloud sect was not there, but Shi Yan also decided to return immediately and report the matter to Sect Master Lu. As for Elder Hua, she had to stay to look after her disciple. Yang Chen, Zhanxian and Little Shu's injuries, is there any hope? After venting her anger, the island master began to ask Yang Chen about the healing. Although there were several daching stage masters present, they were not Yang Chen's opponents alone in terms of healing methods. Even the injuries of Senior Black Tiger and so many daching stage masters could be cured, then this small injury shouldn't be too hard to solve, right? There is no problem with the recovery of their meridians, and I can guarantee that their Tao foundation will not be damaged. Yang Chen's answer made everyone very happy, but Yang Chen still expressed his concerns however, if I want to do it in the short term. It's not so easy to recover their cultivation base. Why is it like this? Could it be that the 5th grade Lingzi mushroom jade pill will not work either? The island master was still full of confidence. Now that Yang Chen said that, there seemed to be something unexpected and she asked immediately. Zhanxian and Little Shu's bodies can't bear the 5th grade Lingzi mushroom jade pill. Yang Chen also told the truth without concealing it. Sun Qingzu and Shi Zhanxian were both present. Hearing what Yang Chen said, the two girls seemed to be happy. Especially Shi Zhanxian, she seemed to have understood a lot of things. Yang Chen's explanation made the island master and the others understand a lot. There were some pills that most people couldn't withstand. If the 5th grade Lingzi mushroom jade pill was placed in the mortal world, it could already be regarded as an immortal pill. Ordinary people would have only one result if they eat it, that was, they would burst into pieces and die. For them, an immortal pill was not a life-saving medicine, but a life-ending poison. Without being baptized by the thunder tribulation and yin fire tribulation, the power of the 5th grade pill could not be withstood at all. Perhaps they could barely withstand the power of the 4th grade, but the efficacy of the 4th grade pill was not enough to restore their cultivation base. Never mind, save their Tao foundation first, they could start to cultivate again from the beginning. The island master nodded. Everyone was an expert and they could afford to take a setback if they could preserve their Tao foundation. What would be wasted was only a mere 200 years, no one would care too much. Also, the last time you ask Zhanxian to ask something, I will give you an answer. The island master directly represented Shi Zhanxian's master and said to Yang Chen about Zhanxian's cultivation direction, we didn't force her, everything depends on Zhanxian's own understanding. If you have any cultivation method here, she can get started and cultivate it, Zhanxian will be your wife from now on, so naturally she will listen to you. Yang Chen was afraid that giving Shi Zhanxian some cultivation techniques would cause a backlash with the Green Jade Immortal Island, so he asked Shi Zhanxian to ask. Now the island master finally gave Yang Chen a definite answer. Also, Zhanxian doesn't need to consider the influence of the sect, nor does it need to be handed over to the sect. Now that the decision has been made, the island master simply seemed more generous. People of the Yang family can cultivate their cultivation method, there is no need to mention anything to the Green Jade Immortal Island. Shi Zhanxian has already been directly tied to the Yang family now. The Blue Cloud sect also wants the same thing. Elder Hua also said. The island master has the highest status. After the island owner has finished speaking, it was her turn to talk as Sun Qingzu's master. Although I am Little Shu's master, I will not be so stingy. Little Shu is also part of your Yang family, so there is no problem in cultivating your Yang family's cultivation methods, and there is no need to ask the sect for instructions. Both parties directly regarded Shi Zhanxian and Sun Qingzu as Yang's family members, as if they were afraid that if something happened this time, the appearance of the two women would change and Yang Chen would change his mind. After all, Yang Chen was a 5th grade alchemist. Without the peerless looks of Shi Zhanxian and Sun Qingzu, there might be other sects that would bring other peerless women. By then, the two major sects loose would not be worth a gain. On the contrary, both Sun Qingzu and Shi Zhanxian heard some hidden hope from Yang Chen's words. It was not so easy to restore the cultivation base, there was still a way but not impossible. It seemed that Yang Chen still had something to say, but these could be said when they were alone with Yang Chen and they didn't have to be in front of everyone. Right now, Yang Chen's task was to immediately refine the face-retaining pills for the two women. This was not just a request of Shi Zhanxian and Sun Qingzu, but the collective request of the several daching stage elders from the Blue Cloud sect and the Green Jade Immortal Island, including the island master. From Shi Zhanxian and Sun Qingzu's mouth, the women learned that Yang Chen was quite sure that there was no problem in restoring their appearance, which made them overjoyed. Although a cultivator could live longer and look younger than ordinary people, this does not mean that a cultivator could live forever. Generally speaking, within 1,000 years, as long as the cultivation level of the Yuning stage could be reached, their youth could basically be maintained forever. But after this 1,000 years, even the Daching stage masters would undergo some slow changes. Although they would not become old, but would also change from a youthful appearance to a middle-aged appearance. The Pure Yang Palace was okay as there were no female cultivators of this level yet, but the masters of these two sects who came to Pure Yang Palace were at this stage, and everyone looked like a middle-aged woman. Since Yang Chen could restore Zhanxian and Sun Qingxu, two women who were currently lacking spirit power, from their middle-aged appearance to their youthful beauty, naturally he could also restore their appearances. As long as any woman knows this news, she would be very interested in it. They would even be willing to pay a high price. Of course, there was a more important point. If Yang Chen could really restore the appearance of the two women, then naturally there would be no problems of empathy in them. The Green Jade Immortal Island and the Blue Cloud sect could still maintain a good relationship with Yang Chen. Not only these experts, but even his master Gao Yu and senior apprentice Sister Gongsenling complained to Yang Chen after they knew that Yang Chen could refine the face-retaining pill. Yang Chen failed to bring such a good thing out early, and they spent more than 200 years in vain. Even though with their current situation, they don't need any face-retaining pills at all. Even if Yang Chen had 100 mouths he couldn't explain it to the women and wanted to cry without tears. He could only silently accept the criticism of the women and then obediently retreat and began to refine the pills. Fairy Chang'e was the most beautiful maiden in the heavenly court and naturally she has her outstanding beauty-preserving techniques. This face-retaining pill was one of them. In addition, there was another method of preserving her face, which was also firmly remembered in Yang Chen's mind. Next time, Yang Chen would have to take out this method of preserving the face in order to please the women. While Yang Chen was in retreat to refine the pills, Elder Shi Yan of the Blue Cloud sect quickly rushed back to the sect and then Sect Master Lu issued a sternly worded note to the Greatest Heaven sect. The Pure Yang Palace was naturally no exception. In the final analysis, this happened because of Yang Chen, so they were very unceremonious in asking the Greatest Heaven sect to give an explanation. The two sects and the Pure Yang Palace simultaneously asked the Greatest Heaven sect for an explanation, but the upper level of the Greatest Heaven sect was at a loss. What Hu Qianyi did outside has not been told to anyone in the sect, so the Greatest Heaven sect who received the note didn't even know what happened. The matter was related to the Daching stage Elder Hu Qianyi. Looking in the sect, they could not find the shadow of Elder Hu. After learning from the representative of the Pure Yang Palace that Elder Hu Qianyi kidnapped the Cold Plum Fairy and the Dancing Snow Fairy to threaten Yang Chen to take out his alchemy secrets, then he also severely injured the two fairies and destroyed their cultivation base. Even with the time he had spent cultivating and his cultivation base, Sect Master Li of the Greatest Heaven sect almost fell to the ground in shock. Of course, Yang Chen's alchemy secrets were also wanted by the sect, but Elder Hu's idea was not good. Did he have to kidnap the two fairies from the Blue Cloud sect and the Green Jade Immortal Island? Even if the other two fiancés who were in the Pure Yang Palace were the ones kidnapped, the Blue Cloud sect and the Green Jade Immortal Island, could they be easily provoked? It was a good thing that he was caught and his true colors was revealed to the sect. How would the sect deal with his aftermath? Thinking of this, Sect Master Li couldn't help but get a headache. If you're enjoying the content, please give it a like, comment, and subscribe to Fantasy World for more. Chapter 455. The Greatest Heaven Sect's Plan. It must be said that the notes issued by the Green Jade Immortal Island, Blue Cloud sect and the Pure Yang Palace this time were discussed with each other and were carried out in stages. In the first note, it just mentioned that the three sects were dissatisfied with the attack on their disciples by Elder Hu of the Greatest Heaven sect. At first, Sect Master Li thought it was only Elder Hu who was seen in figure and couldn't help it, so he hid. Naturally, this kind of thing must be tricky. It was absolutely impossible to balance the two sects without much bleeding. Bleeding would not be enough, at least a few scapegoats were needed. As a Daching stage elder, Hu Qianyi must not have an accident, nor could it be him, so this thing must be done by someone else. Therefore, the story of a certain villain disguised as Elder Hu and doing such things that were indignant between people and gods, then it on blaming Elder Hu and blaming the Greatest Heaven sect was formed in Sect Master Li's mind. The Greatest Heaven sect was the largest sect of the Tao sects, and Hu Qianyi was also a Daching stage elder of the Greatest Heaven sect. He was model disciple and a model cultivator. How could he do such a defiant thing? It must have been done by people with ulterior motives. The purpose of these people must be to destroy the harmonious relationship between the Greatest Heaven sect, Green Jade Immortal Island, Blue Cloud sect and the Pure Yang Palace, and to instigate discord in order to achieve their ulterior motives. Such people must be completely uprooted and eradicated. The Greatest Heaven sect, who took the mortal world's Tao sect's protection as its mission, worked tirelessly and if they immediately discovered something wrong with some clues, They dispatched masters and quickly attacked and killed all these traitors, destroying their further conspiracy and maintaining the stability of the Tao sect's unity. After all, the other party was posing as Elder Hu of the Greatest Heaven sect. The Greatest Heaven sect do not care for themselves. They would bring out enough resources to compensate the two injured fairies and put on a low profile to apologize, and they would even be admired by the common people. In this way, all the face of the Greatest Heaven sect would be saved, and by this matter, the reputation of the sect could be improved. It was a perfect solution. What if others have doubts? As long as the scapegoat was enough to resemble Elder Hu, the dead couldn't speak anyway. Who could prove that it was Elder Hu and not the dead guy? Below the several major sects, including the Pure Yang Palace, who would dare to disagree? As for the Green Jade Immortal Island and the Blue Cloud sect, it was easier to dismiss. Elder Hu was a master of the Daching stage, dealing with two juniors in the Jidan stage. Could it be that he couldn't control the situation? And would hurt people to the point of destroying the opponent's cultivation base? Could Yang Chen rescue the hostages safely under the hand of Elder Hu? This was simply a joke. No, this was a God-given opportunity, an excellent excuse for the Greatest Heaven sect to deal with the Pure Yang Palace. What was the intention of slandering the Greatest Heaven sect like this? They could blame it on the Pure Yang sect. So they could mobilize their strength to eradicate the Pure Yang Palace in one fell swoop. Sect Master Li has even begun to discuss the feasibility of this plan with several other core elders. Everyone has to decide whether to leave Yang Chen's life for his own use after destroying the Pure Yang Palace or imprisoned and tortured him to extract a confession. In short, they must figure out the secret of Yang Chen's alchemy. What Elder Hu could not do, the sect would do it. As for how to deal with Elder Hu's behavior that was not conducive to the sect, naturally there were rules to punish him. But the Greatest Heaven sect could handle it, but outsiders couldn't. This was the logic of the Greatest Heaven sect. On one hand, Sect Master Li immediately sent people to find the missing Elder Hu. On the other hand, he responded to the note from the Green Jade Immortal Island, Blue Cloud sect and the Pure Yang Palace. As for the next thing, it would be launched one after another, accumulating the general trend bit by bit until the Greatest Heaven sect was completely cleared and then the Pure Yang Palace was destroyed. The first thing that the Greatest Heaven sect did was to pass it on to the Foreign Affairs Hall. They would respond to the note and publicly declare that this was definitely a person with ulterior motives planting the blame on them. Elder Hu would never do such a thing, and the Greatest Heaven sect has never acted like this against the three sects. In the Tao sects, suddenly there was an uproar. The incident in the Green Jade Immortal Island, Blue Cloud sect and Pure Yang Palace was not publicized. It was only known to the three sects' senior members. Now that the Greatest Heaven sect made such a move, it immediately caused a chain reaction. This kind of openly bullying the weak and attacking the other's genius disciple was absolutely despised by most people. But at the moment the three sects did not disclose the matter, but the Greatest Heaven sect made the matter public, as if the Greatest Heaven sect had a clear conscience. Immediately several small sects jumped out and supported the Greatest Heaven sect. How could the leader of the Tao sects do such a thing? This must be a mistake. The two big sects should not be provoked by villains with ulterior motives, which would destroy the good situation of stability and unity of the Tao sects. Some sects condemned this kind of behavior against other sect juniors. Whether it was made by the Greatest Heaven sect or not, it was a fact that the Cold Plum Fairy and Dancing Snow Fairy were attacked and seriously injured. The Blue Cloud sect and the Green Jade Immortal Island would not sacrifice their genius disciples to play this kind of game. Other sects and rogue cultivators had a different mentality. If their skills were not as good as others, then there was nothing to say. As for using the strong to bully the weak, it's even more absurd. Could it be that the experts couldn't fight back when they are provoked by the juniors? Suddenly, the entire Tao sect turned noisy, igniting a frenzy of controversy. This was exactly the effect that the Greatest Heaven sect wanted. The more intense the quarrel became, the more it paves the way for subsequent actions against Pure Yang Palace. At that time, as long as there was evidence that it was the people of the Pure Yang Palace, then taking the opportunity to destroy the Pure Yang Palace would be easy. Even the Green Jade Immortal Island and the Blue Cloud sect would not be able to stop it. The calculation was good, but the only problem now was that they didn't know where Elder Hu Qianyu was. You must know that Elder Hu was the key figure in the whole incident. Of course, the Greatest Heaven sect must have an iron proof that Elder Hu was not present at the time of the incident. But no matter how to make a proof, they had to discuss it with Elder Hu. Everyone had to get their stories straight to avoid making mistakes. But Elder Hu hasn't been seen by anyone. Could it be that something has changed? Daching stage masters would never die so easily. Moreover, his life jade tablet was not broken, indicating that Elder Hu must be alive. Since Elder Hu was alive and the Blue Cloud sect, Green Jade Immortal Island and the Pure Yang Palace also said that their three juniors, Zhanxian, Sun Qingxu and Yang Chen, have returned to the sect, what does that mean? Elder Hu was captured. Elder Hu was driven away when he lost. Elder Hu was injured. Impossible. He believed that if Hu Qianyu really did this kind of thing, he would never leave a loophole that allows the three sects to take advantage of it. The only possibility was that when Elder Hu got what he wanted, he let them go. And what Elder Hu got should be Yang Chen's alchemy secrets. If a dashing stage master seeks to seize the possessions of a younger generation junior in the Jidan stage, if he was injured and escapes, it was simply a big joke. This was absolutely impossible, at least to the senior members of the Greatest Heaven sect, it was impossible. From another perspective, Hu Qianyu's behavior was very questionable. Several senior members in the Greatest Heaven sect also had some different thoughts. Elder Hu had never mentioned to the sect that he had to do these things, he just disappeared, he must have wanted to return quietly after he had done it secretly, as if it had never happened. But it didn't work, Elder Hu's actions were not a secret and he was recognized by others, this was a great trouble. In fact, in the minds of the senior members of the Greatest Heaven sect, it was already affirmed that Hu Qianyu did this, but they just refused to admit it verbally. This kind of thing, just do it, as long as it doesn't make people hurt your feet. As for what to say about the savior, it was even more nonsense. When Yang Chen made a pill for them, he got a lot of things from the Greatest Heaven sect. If everyone on the scene was not afraid that the spirit congealing pills could not be refined by themselves, they would have concentrated on killing Yang Chen. Elder Hu did this thing in advance, which was very good, especially when he got Yang Chen's alchemy secrets, which was even more wonderful for the Greatest Heaven sect. The only problem was that Elder Hu had done this, but he didn't notify the sect, what did he want to do? Yang Chen's alchemy secrets could give a person the supreme secrets of a fifth-grade alchemist. They didn't know where Yang Chen found it, but now, it seems that it has become Elder Hu's possession. But Elder Hu was not an alchemist himself, but he holds this alchemy secret, what does he want to do? For Elder Hu, to do something so high level meant that he already had something in mind. However, the most urgent task now was to find the whereabouts of Elder Hu immediately, check the situation, and then take out the secret obtained from Yang Chen to the sect. It must be said that the Greatest Heaven sect still has a lot of background as the Tao sect leader for so many years. Even if it had suffered a major disaster before and suffered a great loss of strength, there were still countless small sects who were willing to follow them to the end. Under the superb control of the Greatest Heaven sect, the argument that Elder Hu was spoofed by others has become more and more dominant. And the wind began to move in a direction that was not conducive to the Pure Yang Palace. No one would dare to provoke the Green Jade Immortal Island and the Blue Cloud sect, but the Pure Yang Palace was another matter. This matter was related to Yang Chen, and soon people began to say that it was self-directed and acted. After all, the Cold Plum Fairy and Dancing Snow Fairy were both Yang Chen's fiancés. It was normal for them to lie for Yang Chen. When this statement came out, it won a lot of people, and it became a growing trend. Under such circumstances, the second series of more severely worded notes from the three sects were sent to the Greatest Heaven sect again, asking the Greatest Heaven sect to give an account for Hu Qianyu's behavior. The general situation outside has already taken place. How could the Greatest Heaven sect bow their heads and surrender at this moment? Naturally, they put on a face of righteousness and expressed condolences to the Cold Plum Fairy and Dancing Snow Fairy for their injuries, but they firmly refused to admit that Elder Hu would make a move and do this kind of thing. It must be known that Elder Hu has been in retreat at the sect since he recovered from his injury last time. He comprehended his mood after being injured in the last battle. He has not left the sect until now. How could he do such a thing? It must be the mistake of the three sects. Maybe the two sects were misled by some treacherous villains, and they felt that the Greatest Heaven sect would do this kind of thing in order to suppress the younger generation. The reasons for the Greatest Heaven sect were very good. One was that Elder Hu was in retreat and has not gone out at all. 2. If Elder Hu really made the move against the three juniors in the Jidan stage, how could they go back alive and prove anything? This statement was indeed very convincing. A dashing stage master, not to mention the three juniors in the late Jidan stage, if it was three ancestors in the late Yuning stages, they would not necessarily be his opponent. If he really wanted to do it, could they still go back alive? As a result, the Greatest Heaven sect's argument was supported by most people. Under their guidance, intentionally or unintentionally, the spearhead has been directed at the Pure Yang Palace. Some vanguards have even started to clamor openly that the Pure Yang Palace was now expanding in power and wanted to do harm to the world. On the surface, the Greatest Heaven sect was trying to get rid of the suspicion, but secretly the high-level officials began to concentrate their efforts and explore the reality of blaming the Pure Yang Palace. When the time comes, they would use the momentum to completely uproot the Pure Yang Palace, leaving no future troubles. Destroying the Pure Yang Palace would also be an important blow to the Green Jade Immortal Island and the Blue Cloud sect, and it would also eliminate the desire of the Five Element sect and Qiankin sect to expand in strength. Without Yang Chen's questioning inner heart pills, the five-element sect and the Qianqin sect could only maintain the status quo. The reason why they wanted to destroy the Pure Yang Palace so strongly was that the Greatest Heaven sect had already obtained the pill recipes for the Spirit Congealing pill, Questioning Inner Heart pill, and the Heaven Seizing pill. Even if no one could refine it now, if they study it for some years, if 10 and 20 years were not enough, then 100 years and 200 years would eventually be enough for them to be able to refine it. After all, Yang Chen came from a small sect and he didn't have the structure and height to think from the standpoint of the big sect. He thought that he had already earned resources by trading some precious things with the pill recipes, but he did not expect that while he was selling the pill recipes at the same time, he also laid the bane for his own destruction. Good things were better enjoyed by one person than shared by several people. Yang Chen doesn't even understand this truth. Speaking of it, Yang Chen was just a younger generation junior. It's natural to not understand this, but the palace master and elders of the Pure Yang Palace don't understand it. This only shows that they were stupid and they deserve to be destroyed. Especially now that Yang Chen's alchemy secrets may have also fallen into the hands of Elder Hu Qianyi, so there were no worries. How could a fifth-grade alchemist of another sect be comparable to their own fifth-grade alchemist? How could the sect allow a competitor of this level to appear? Of course, if they wanted to destroy the Pure Yang Palace, the Greatest Heaven sect cannot do it themselves. Otherwise, it would be easy to leave pretext for the two major sects, the Green Jade Immortal Island and the Blue Cloud sect, and it would also make the five-element sect and Qianqin sect dissatisfied. In this regard, the Greatest Heaven sect has a way. The concentrated power of the dark hands of the Greatest Heaven sect distributed outside was enough to destroy the Pure Yang Palace from top to bottom. When the time comes, useful people would be kept and all the useless would be killed. Although Miking Mountain was mediocre, it was a place of cultivation anyway, wasn't it? There were also several female disciples with outstanding aptitude and great appearance in the Pure Yang Palace who could secretly be taken to make furnaces for the elders of the sect. Everything was already under control, and everything could be activated only when Elder Hu was found. Just when the Greatest Heaven sect seniors were already proud to destroy the Pure Yang Palace, the third wave of notes from the three sects arrived again. If you're enjoying the content, please give it a like, comment, and subscribe to Fantasy World for more. Chapter 456. Trouble Brewing. The content of the third series of notes was very simple. It said that Elder Hu Qianyi kidnapped their juniors for extortion and he was captured on the spot. Human and physical evidence were available. There was hard evidence and so the Greatest Heaven sect must give an explanation. This time the note was not held in private but was announced directly to the public. When the news came out, there was an uproar in the cultivation world. Being arrested at the scene was something that couldn't be disputed. What's more, the Greatest Heaven sect had always vowed solemnly that Elder Hu was in seclusion in the sect. At this moment, the situation created by the great efforts of the Greatest Heaven sect collapsed. Boom, after receiving the note, there was a bang in the mind of Sect Master Li of the Greatest Heaven sect and his eyes went dark and he almost fainted. Even so, his chest and abdomen were filled with breath and a mouthful of sweetness came up from his throat. Sect Master Li abruptly suppressed the surge of blood and tried to swallow the blood that had reached his throat. The shock this time was so severe that he, a master in the late Yuning stage, couldn't stand it. This was simply a thunderbolt from the blue sky, enough to blow up the Greatest Heaven sect. All the efforts made by the Greatest Heaven sect before became a kind of ridiculous clown performance in front of this news and they were staged in turn in front of the Green Jade Immortal Island, Blue Cloud sect and the Pure Yang Palace. The core elders of the Greatest Heaven sect were all having shocked faces like their fathers and mothers were dead and no one could believe the news was true. How was this possible? Hu Qianyi crippled the cultivation base of the Cold Plum Fairy and Dancing Snow Fairy, everyone believes that, and it was estimated that Elder Hu didn't plan for them to survive when he did it. How could a master in the Daching stage be captured alive by a junior in the late Jiden stage? This was simply the biggest joke in the world. The problem was that this joke happened to Elder Hu of the Greatest Heaven sect. This was a great disaster. For the reputation of the Greatest Heaven sect, it was definitely a disaster. Sect Master Li and several core elders could swear to heaven that they absolutely don't know what Hu Qianyi did and what Elder Hu did was definitely not instigated by them. But the problem was that someone has to believe it. The Greatest Heaven sect has always been domineering and has done one or two things unreasonably. It's just that there was generally no definite evidence and no one dared to easily take on the Greatest Heaven sect. This time was different, they were caught on the scene and both the fairies could also testify. Two Daching stage masters from the Pure Yang Palace were present and a disciple of Hu Qianyi who they did not know where he was found from had already confessed everything. There was hard evidence that the Green Jade Immortal Island and Blue Cloud sect were involved and they were also no less than the Greatest Heaven sect in strength, it was impossible to threaten them with force. The most embarrassing thing was that the Greatest Heaven sect had always insisted before that elder who had been in close seclusion in the sect for decades and had never taken a step outside. So, where did the elder who was captured come out from? For a master in the Daching stage, it was by no means that easy to pretend to be him, and there were more than tens of thousands of people who knew elder who in this world, and they couldn't deny it if they wanted to deny it. But the difference in thought, the Greatest Heaven sect became a shameful liar, and they made a fool of themselves in front of all the Tao sects. It may not stop there, because of the opening of the Hall of Eccentrics, many monster races also know about this kind of thing, and perhaps it would spread to the monster domain. For the Greatest Heaven sect, this incident was simply a disaster in reputation. The Daching stage elders of the Greatest Heaven sect turned out to be the masters in kidnapping the younger generation juniors of other sects and extorting the secrets of others, and the Greatest Heaven sect still defended such people in every possible way and even protected them. What does this mean? The Greatest Heaven sect, who has always claimed to be the leader of the Tao sects, was a den of thieves. Otherwise, how could such a thing happen? It was Elder who kidnapped the younger generation today. Maybe tomorrow it would be Elder Wang, Elder Liu, or even Sect Master Li. But the sect actually defended such people in every possible way, saying that he has been retreating for decades, saying that he has never taken a step outside the sect. Speaking of this, the Greatest Heaven sect always claimed when there were major events outside that their elders or masters were in seclusion, maybe there was a shadow of the Greatest Heaven sect in it. Today, the Greatest Heaven sect claimed that Elder Hu was in seclusion, but Elder Hu was out to do this. Did those masters also use seclusion as a reason to go out for their business? In the Greatest Heaven sect, there were people in seclusion almost constantly, and there were also accidents outside. Many killing cases have yet to find the murderer, but now everyone has one more suspected target. For what was going on outside, how were they going to explain? But they had to explain clearly what happened this time first. Even the big sects such as the Green Jade Immortal Island and Blue Cloud sect couldn't get a truthful confession from the Greatest Heaven sect, so where do other small sects go to find an explanation? This was the strategy of the three sects this time. On that day, the island master was furious and was about to approach the Greatest Heaven sect, but Yang Chen stopped her for a bit and immediately proposed such a secretly shady method. The Greatest Heaven sect really had to be open and honest, so they had to immediately abandon a Daching stage elder to protect their reputation, then naturally everything would be easy. Everyone would not need to fight, and they could kill a Daching stage elder of the Greatest Heaven sect, but at the cost of two Jitan stage disciples injured and crippled, anyone could do it instead. The relationship between the Green Jade Immortal Island, Blue Cloud sect and the Greatest Heaven sect was a cooperative and competitive relationship which showed that there was peace between them, but secretly it was not known how many secret manipulation there was. This time, they would be able to kill a Daching stage elder from the Greatest Heaven sect. Moreover, even if the Greatest Heaven sect was really willing to give up Huqiani, there would inevitably be some loss of reputation. This was the perfect situation to deal with the Greatest Heaven sect. In fact, everyone knew from the beginning that the Greatest Heaven sect would never give up a Daching stage elder so easily. Daching stage masters, whichever sects they were placed in, were top-level martial artists, and no sect was willing to give up a Daching stage master easily. Even the Greatest Heaven sect was no exception, otherwise the Greatest Heaven sect would not be willing to pay a high price to seek alchemy from Yang Chen, and for this reason, he got generous compensation to several big sects. But the more this was the case, the more it was true that Huqiani's despicableness of repaying grievances for virtue would further affect the reputation of the Greatest Heaven sect. The more they defend Huqiani, the more unbearable the reputation of the Greatest Heaven sect would be the moment the truth was announced. The development of the situation was as expected by Yang Chen. The Greatest Heaven sect resolutely denied the incident and also used some external personnel to launch a round of campaigns and gain support, all were calculated by Yang Chen. It could not be said that the Green Jade Immortal Island and Blue Cloud sect dug a pit for the Greatest Heaven sect to fall inside. It was the Greatest Heaven sect's arrogant mentality which determined that they would inevitably fall into such a situation. Whether it's the Green Jade Immortal Island, Blue Cloud sect or Pyongyang Palace, the first note was issued in secret. Except for the four sects involved, the three sects did not announce a word to the public. It was the Greatest Heaven sect's act of creating an atmosphere and creating a general trend that led the spearhead to the Pyongyang Palace and planted the moral seeds for the future destruction of the Pyongyang Palace, which brought themselves into this huge dirty puddle. The Greatest Heaven sect took the initiative to publicize all things to maintain their grand and magnificent image. Even when the three sects sent out a second internal note, they still chose to make it public and made it clear that this matter had ulterior motives and that it had absolutely nothing to do with the Greatest Heaven sect. Therefore, in the third note, the Green Jade Immortal Island, Blue Cloud Sect and the Pure Yang Palace collectively chose to question them publicly. They mentioned the evidence and asked the Greatest Heaven Sect to explain. Those outsiders who now knew the whole story stood on a fair stand and have to say that the three sects of the Green Jade Immortal Island, Blue Cloud Sect and the Pure Yang Palace have done their best. Originally, the Greatest Heaven Sect only had to secretly confess to the three sects and it would not be a big deal to compensate for some losses, expel Hu Qianyi from the Greatest Heaven Sect or deal with him according to the sect rules. This matter would not be exposed. But the Greatest Heaven Sect didn't pay attention to other people's kindness. Not only did they proactively announce it, but they also chose to defend the elder who made the mistake. One wrong step eventually led to the situation where the Greatest Heaven Sect could not come back from. No matter how they explain it, even if the sect rules were used to deal with Hu Qianyi at this time, or the life and death of Elder Hu was handed over to the three sects to deal with, it would not be able to restore the results caused before. There was no objection within the Greatest Heaven Sect regarding the way the sect master and several core elders dealt with the matter at the beginning. But as the truth of the matter was further revealed, even the inside of the Greatest Heaven Sect began to have different voices. The bigger the sect, the more power and resources there would be. The factions in the sect have become more complex. Sect Master Li and several core elders have been controlling the affairs of the Greatest Heaven Sect because they have basically made no mistakes before and under their guidance, the Greatest Heaven Sect was flourishing. Naturally, no one dared to say anything. Even if they did, it was suppressed by those disciples who benefited from it. However, the decision made by the sect master and core elders has brought very serious consequences to the Greatest Heaven Sect, causing a devastating blow to the reputation of the Greatest Heaven Sect, and the impact would last the next few decades, hundreds or even longer. This was why some people who were unwilling to be suppressed started to move. Although in the current situation, the loss of a daching stage master does not cause much loss to the Greatest Heaven Sect strength, but the loss in reputation was definitely something that the Greatest Heaven Sect cannot make up for with 10 or 20 daching stage masters. When the Greatest Heaven Sect, who prides itself as the leader of the Tao sects, loses its morality and righteousness, it would no longer be qualified to criticize others. The sect began to have different voices. Questions were raised about the response measures of the sect master and several core elders this time. Sect Master Li was originally angry with the previous news and now he was having a headache on how to deal with the aftermath, but at this point, the backyard of the sect caught fire again and the few who spoke were all daching stage elders. There was such a large wave of forces and they were all competing with the existing core elders for positions. If it was before, if Sect Master Li and several elders joined forces, they would definitely be able to depress these thorns, but now they couldn't. Their decision-making has brought irreparable losses to the Greatest Heaven Sect, so they naturally have less confidence. The entire Greatest Heaven Sect's elders meeting became a mess. Someone must first discuss and resolve the current dilemma. Some people wanted to hold certain people accountable, and some quietly drew other elders to strengthen their own momentum. The dignified Greatest Heaven Sect Council of Elders has never been so absurd. After the news spread, some Greatest Heaven Sect disciples who had been practicing outside immediately felt that the eyes of the people around them changed a little. Although there was still some awe, but it didn't have the previous flattering and instead has a sense of unclear defense. They couldn't help but think that this was the consequence of Elder Hu's plot to seize Yang Chen's alchemy secrets. If the upper level members was not virtuous, then the lower level members was crooked and the uppermost elders of the Greatest Heaven Sect were all having this virtue and the ordinary Greatest Heaven Sect disciples were definitely not much better. If it weren't for the Greatest Heaven Sect's huge strength that people couldn't ignore, it was estimated that these outside Greatest Heaven Sect disciples would definitely be attacked. Compared with the chaos in the Greatest Heaven Sect, the Pure Yang Palace, Green Jade Immortal Island and Blue Cloud Sect were in a good mood waiting for the show to unfold. From the very beginning, the Greatest Heaven Sect spread the news, accusing and spilling dirty water on the Pure Yang Palace and Yang Chen. The three sects were very tacit and all responded with silence until the Greatest Heaven Sect swore to prove that Elder Hu had been cultivating in seclusion. After that, the truth was announced. Years of experience in secret struggles made the island master and Elder Shai look at Yang Chen like a monster after hearing Yang Chen talk about this small plan. Such retaliation was simply the downfall of the Greatest Heaven Sect. As long as the Greatest Heaven Sect accidentally jumped in, it would be a big stain that could no longer be washed away. Based on the understanding of the Greatest Heaven Sect by the two sects, the Greatest Heaven Sect would definitely jump into this dirty puddle. Unexpectedly, Yang Chen, who has been devoting himself to alchemy, has such a keen mind. No wonder the Pure Yang Palace wanted to appoint Yang Chen as their young palace master. It turns out that Yang Chen really has this ability. No one could describe the happiness of the three sects. Not to mention the Pure Yang Palace, Green Jade Immortal Island and Blue Cloud sect alone, after so many years of fierce battles, even if the two major sects did not suffer much, they did not take much advantage. Now it's just a matter of two Jitan stage younger generation juniors being injured, made the greatest heaven sect pay the price of a daching stage elder, not to mention, they also suffered an immeasurable dark loss. Why would it not make people happy enough to want to celebrate? It seemed that everything was made possible by the little guy Yang Chen. In the previous secret incident, the two major sects took advantage and got enough resources. Not to mention the benefits, they cleaned the interior and consumed several daching stage masters in the greatest heaven sect. The relationship between the three sects has further improved. It could be said that Yang Chen was the lucky star of the two sects. If you're enjoying the content, please give it a like, comment, and subscribe to Fantasy World for more. Chapter 457. Face Retaining Pills. No one could refute this, and they could draw this conclusion by counting the benefits Yang Chen has brought to the two sects. The blood demon vine that trapped Elder Hua of the Blue Cloud sect was helped by Yang Chen. The 8 metal true secret art was discovered by Yang Chen. The talented disciple Sun Qingxu also was helped by Yang Chen. The income of the 100,000 mountains was brought by Yang Chen. It was also hinted by Yang Chen that even the dozen or so Yuning stage praying mantis corpses brought back by Sun Qingxu were found with Yang Chen. The same was true for the Green Jade Immortal Island. Zhanxian's troubles were solved by Yang Chen, her heart devil was helped by Yang Chen, and the seabed spirit medicine was slowly developed by Yang Chen. The 100,000 mountain and secret plane incidents also had Yang Chen's indispensable shadow. Of course, the most important thing was that, whether it was the 5th grade Lingzi mushroom jade pills or questioning inner heart pills, all were from Yang Chen. In recent decades, the strength of the two sects has soared and they were completely inseparable from Yang Chen. Even if such an excellent junior couldn't be brought back to their sect, it was always a good thing to form a relationship with him. What's more, Zhanxian and Sun Qingxu had already been secretly promised to Yang Chen for marriage, which was also good for the sect. No one would be foolish enough to refuse. Now the people of the two major sects were worried about two things. One was the situation of the two women, whether Yang Chen would hold the wedding as scheduled, and the other was how effective Yang Chen's face-retaining pill would be. As for the greatest heaven sect, they would let them have a headache. The previous wrong decision has made them lose face. Next, they may be desperate, disregarding the prestige and reputation they have accumulated before, and angrily fight the two major sects. Or pull down their face to apologize, and then pull out a high-level top-ranking member that was at least the level of the master of the Foreign Affairs Hall, to blame for this wrong decision. Either way, in short, they were too unlucky. Even if it was a war, the two sects were not afraid, not to mention that the combined strength of the two sects was already stronger than that of the greatest heaven sect, and the two sects were already ready to fight after the first note was sent. The most important thing was that the two sects occupy the righteous ground and the moral commanding heights. The greatest heaven sect would be causing a war outbreak without a cause, which determines that they would never have the upper hand when facing the two sects. After arranging everything, the island master did not return to the Green Jade Immortal Island, but waited in the Pure Yang Palace. In fact, except for the experts who had to return to the sect to control the sect's affairs, basically all the experts who came to the Pure Yang Palace this time stayed in the Pure Yang Palace. On one hand, it was to prevent the greatest heaven sect from jumping over the wall to launch a surprise attack on the Pure Yang Palace, on the other hand, it was to collectively wait for the release of Yang Chen's face-retaining pills. Yang Chen couldn't imagine how attractive the face-retaining pills he mentioned were to the two basically female sects of the Green Jade Immortal Island and the Blue Cloud sect. He just thought he wanted to restore the appearance of his two fiancées, so he was attentively refining. The greatest heaven sect's reaction was basically under Yang Chen's guess, so there was no need to consider outside matters at all. Now it was the time to concentrate on refining the face-retaining pills. Zhanxian and Sun Qingxu were still taking 10 portions of the Lingzi mushroom jade pill every other time. The meridians in their bodies were slowly improving, but the improvements were limited. It could only be said that it was stable and rising, and it was still far from complete recovery. If the two women weren't worried about their appearance, Yang Chen would have already started treating the two women. The face-retaining pill left by Fairy Chang'e was definitely not so easy to refine. With the appearance of Fairy Chang'e, he didn't know how many treasured medicinal materials were collected in the heavenly court to refine it. It must be known that it was the spirit medicine in the immortal world, which was of higher quality than the spirit medicine of the mortal world. Naturally, her pill recipe was also very demanding. In terms of medicinal materials, Yang Chen could only use the spirit medicine of the mortal world that had matured for thousands of years to refine the face-retaining pill. Even so, the efficacy of the pill was still much worse than that of the heavenly court spirit medicine. However, it was absolutely possible to let the mortal world cultivators stay young forever in the mortal world. The method of alchemy, Yang Chen had the reference of the elderly Lord Pill scripture, and his previous life experience was more than enough. His ability to control fire was even more outstanding, even stronger than Fairy Chang'e back then. Speaking of it, refining the face-retaining pill should be a breeze. But Yang Chen still underestimated the importance of beauty to women. The complicated and tedious process of the pill recipe for the face-retaining pill would make people almost vomit blood. In Yang Chen's understanding of pill recipes, sometimes it was just to increase the perfection of the skin, but Yang Chen felt that no one would notice the effect. Fairy Chang'e added at least to the pill recipe more than a dozen cumbersome steps and meticulous craftsmanship which have plainly increased the difficulty of the alchemy by at least 30%. If there was only this then it would be okay, the problem was that there have been at least 40 times like this and every small step can't have the slightest error, making the overall difficulty of refining more than 10 times more difficult. And the time for the refining has increased 5 or 6 times and it takes at least half a year to refine this beauty pill. Things were not over with the Greatest Heaven sect and Yang Chen really has no intention to simplify these tedious steps. It was not a small project. Therefore, using the method of Chang'e face-retaining pill recipe step by step, he started refining the first face-retaining pills. If Fairy Chang'e knew Yang Chen's simplified thoughts, she would definitely climb out of the Immortal Executioner Stage and slap Yang Chen severely. The fairy knew how much effort it took to optimize the original face-retaining pill, which had a good effect to the present point. Yang Chen wanted to simplify the refining and weaken the face-retaining pill effect, what a slap in the face. Not to mention Fairy Chang'e, just let the women waiting outside know, it was estimated that it would not end well for Yang Chen. Yang Chen has been refining the face-retaining pills during the period when the 3 sects sent the 3 notes to the Greatest Heaven sect. Until the Greatest Heaven sect was in a state of desperation and chaos, Yang Chen's face-retaining pills was finally released. As soon as he came out of the alchemy room, he saw a group of people led by the palace master, Gao Yu Gongsenling, Zhanxian and Sun Qingxu. The island master and Elder Hua were also on the sidelines. Yang Chen was shocked directly. What happened with the Greatest Heaven sect? Yang Chen immediately asked subconsciously. With so many people gathered, apart from the changes in the Greatest Heaven sect, Yang Chen couldn't think of any reason why these people could be at the entrance of the alchemy room. Is the face-retaining pills refined? To Yang Chen's surprise, the island master of the Green Jade Immortal Island, who should pay the most attention to events like the Greatest Heaven sect situation, turned out to be the first person to ask about the face-retaining pills. You are all waiting for the face-retaining pills. From the fiery eyes of the other women, Yang Chen saw some facts, but still couldn't believe it. Of course, what do you think? Elder Hua snatched a small jade bottle containing the face-retaining pills from Yang Chen, opened it directly, looked inside and immediately frowned. How come there are only 2? Yang Chen only refined for his 2 fiancés, so of course he refined only 2 pills. He didn't think much about this and he subconsciously followed this amount. The 10,000 years spirit medicine doesn't fall from the sky and if he could save it, he would save it. Obviously, this situation made the ladies headed by Island Master and Elder Hua very unhappy, but they didn't say much. 2 would be 2, at least they must first see the effect. Sun Qingxu and Zhanxian were checked again by Yang Chen, and after confirming that their injuries were stable, they each found a quiet room and took the medicine. The effect of the medicine was not a short-lived matter. When the women waited for the effect of the medicine to work, Yang Chen was finally able to come to the side with the palace master and chatted about the recent situation of the Greatest Heaven sect. The Greatest Heaven sect had a bad intention, and it seems that they had a heart to destroy my sect. Listening to the master of the palace, he talked about the movements of the Greatest Heaven sect, especially when he heard some people faintly pointed at the Pure Yang Palace. Yang Chen couldn't help but snort coldly. There is news from the Wine Immortal House that some unidentified experts have gathered in a place thousands of miles away from Myking Mountain, and they seem to want to attack my sect. The master of the palace nodded. The Wine Immortal had secretly joined the Pure Yang Palace. As a result, Pure Yang Palace's information to the outside world was so well informed, if there was a little bit turbulent outside, the news was immediately presented to the palace master. Elder Wine Immortal is okay in his cultivation now. Yang Chen hadn't seen the Wine Immortal for a long time. Hearing the palace master talk about the Wine Immortal house, he naturally asked. Thanks to you, he has now begun his seclusion and intends to hit the threshold of the datching stage. When the palace master talked about the arrival of the Wine Immortal, a smile appeared on his face. Although the Wine Immortal only secretly joined the Pure Yang Palace with the help of the questioning inner heart pills, it seemed that he was on the verge of reaching the datching stage. The Pure Yang Palace would have another datching master. Although it was secret, it was enough to make the palace master happy. Especially if the Wine Immortal became a master of the Daching stage, the Wine Immortal house would naturally rise, and what would follow would be a series of benefits. What's the answer from the greatest heaven sect now? Yang Chen asked anxiously, without asking what kind of confession the greatest heaven sect had this time. The third note has only been sent to the greatest heaven sect for 10 days, and no one has come back. They have not responded yet. The head of the palace master was not as impatient as Yang Chen and sat very calmly. He couldn't blame Yang Chen, he has been refining and he didn't know the news from the outside, he didn't know how far things have progressed, so he felt a little impatient. Hearing the words of the palace master, Yang Chen also fell silent. Suddenly his heart moved, he once again asked the palace master how many of those experts gathered, what realm do they have, and are they still there now? There are more than 400 people, of which there are more than 80 Wielding stage ancestors, and the rest are all at the peak of the late Cheatin stage. After thinking about it, the palace master replied however, it is said that there are still people. As we rushed over there, they were all people from small sects and rogue cultivators. Thousands of miles away from Myking Mountain. If there was a better flying magic weapon, it would only take a few hours to reach Myking Mountain. This was clearly a plan to do something, and he just waited for the greatest heaven sect to speak. Is there no master in Daching stage among them? Yang Chen was still a little puzzled, relying on dozens of hundreds of Wielding stage ancestors would not be enough to destroy the Puryang Palace. It was known that there were 2 Daching stage masters in the Puryang Palace now, and sending so many Wielding stage ancestors here was nothing short of being futile. The whereabouts of the masters of the Daching stage are difficult to grasp, and it is impossible for the people in the Wine Immortal house to find them. The master of the palace shook his head. He did not believe that the other party would not dispatch the masters of the Daching stage, but the people of the Wine Immortal house obviously could not trace Daching stage masters. The presence of such a master would be unknown unless the master showed up intentionally. Maybe it's a repeat of the old trick. There are a few great elders who have been in the greatest heaven sect for a long time. No one knows what they look like. They may appear on our side when they do it. Yang Chen knew quite a few of the secrets of the greatest heaven sect, at this time he immediately thought of this key point. The reason why the greatest heaven sect has always ruled the mortal world was that in addition to its revealed power, there were also a large number of secret disciples scattered among various minor sects and rogue cultivators. However, these were not the ultimate force of the greatest heaven sect was an unknown number of great elders. These great elders were dormant in the secret formations deep in the greatest heaven sect. With their strength they could already ascend immediately, but were relying on some mysterious formations to force their cultivation to be suppressed. At the peak of the Daching stage, they do not trigger the heavenly tribulation and hide their cultivation base, only to secretly protect the greatest heaven sect or take action after encountering certain major enemies. These old guys, who were extremely hidden, were very powerful. Maybe Elder Wu Xiong before crossing the tribulation was not necessarily the opponent of these old guys. These guys were all loyal to the sect. Every time before they could ascend, they would voluntarily guard the sect for hundreds of years and then ascend. The experts accumulated by the greatest heaven sect for tens of thousands of years were absolutely terrifying numbers. In fact, not only the greatest heaven sect, the Green Jade Immortal Island, Blue Cloud sect and other major sects also have such great elders, but they did not have many great elders like the greatest heaven sect, so their ultimate strength was still a lot worse. If the greatest heaven sect used these people, it wouldn't need to be too many, as long as one made a move, Master Wang Yong and the old tree demon could be suppressed, and there might be life or death concerns. But after using them, it was not without consequences. Once these old guys made a move, they would soon trigger the tribulation, so they would not easily do it. They would only use it when the sect needs it. Once these people were really used, when the Puryang Palace was destroyed, this was a great elder who had been in seclusion for many years and finally broke through the bottleneck. Who could doubt the greatest heaven sect? It was a pity that the greatest heaven sect just said that Hu Qianyi was in retreat and it was said that Hu Qianyi was captured alive. Once this happened, it was not so easy for the greatest heaven sect to use the same technique to cover it up. That's why it has been delayed until now and they haven't done anything yet. When Yang Chen was discussing with the palace master, there was a commotion among the girls over at the other side. Zhanxian and Sun Qingxu had already exited the quiet room. If you're enjoying the content, please give it a like, comment, and subscribe to Fantasy World for more. Chapter 458. Effect of the face retaining pills. The ladies over there were just agitated at first, and then all fell silent. The lowest level of cultivation base that was among them was the Cheatin stage, so they won't be shocked like ordinary women. Yang Chen could feel it without even looking when Zhanxian and Sun Qingxu walked out and then they heard a sound of inhalation. Then the two women were surrounded by the girls and there was no shadow of them from the outside. Yang Chen would never doubt the effect of the face retaining pills. The daily maintenance of Fairy Chang'e was definitely something that made the female fairies of the heavenly court jealous almost to the extent of vomiting blood. This beauty pill was definitely the top magic weapon for women to maintain their beauty. Unfortunately, Yang Chen's impression of Fairy Chang'e was not particularly stunning. One couldn't do anything about it, the beauty sent to the Immortal Executioner Stage, no matter how graceful and peerless, she was captured after a bitter fight, she was wounded and in an extremely difficult situation, so how could she still maintain her status as the cold and proud fairy of the Moon Palace? In Yang Chen's eyes, Fairy Chang'e was unworthy of her fame. Because of this first impression, Yang Chen certainly didn't expect much. At least in his eyes, those boring medicines were used to increase the effect by 1% but had to pay 100% of the hard work. The effect was certainly good, but if he refines it again, he would definitely greatly simplify the pill. Thinking like this in his mind, Yang Chen still wanted to see the actual effect. It's just that the ladies who surrounded the two women seemed a bit strange, standing there one by one without saying a word, it was really elusive what happened. Gosh. Unbelievable. Just when Yang Chen thought that the most powerful women in the world had a collective hysteria. The girls who surrounded the two women seemed to wake up from a dream and exclaimed for a while. Yang Chen and the palace master looked at each other and the palace master looked at Yang Chen. Turning his head at him, motioned for him to go forward. After all, it was his fiancée and it was justified to go up and see. On the contrary, it was not easy for the palace master to approach them, so he could only stand here and wait quietly. On this occasion, the island master and Elder Hua were present and it was very rude to probe with spiritual awareness. Therefore, no matter how curious the palace master was, he did not dare to easily use his spiritual awareness. When Yang Chen walked over, the footsteps were deliberately heavy. It also indirectly reminds these seniors except for his fiancée. Sure enough, hearing the sound of Yang Chen's footsteps, the women spontaneously stepped aside for him and he walked easily in front of the two women who had just come out of the quiet room. The beauty pill was really effective, this was the thought in Yang Chen's mind after first seeing it. Zhanxian and Sun Qingxu, as expected, had restored their youthful appearance, they were the same cold and unparalleled beauties, and they had the same charm. No, there seems to be some small differences. Looking carefully, it seemed that the skin of the two women was slightly more delicate than that of the previous, and the body looked slightly smoother. Of course, it was only a little change. In Yang Chen's eyes, the two women were still the two women in his memory, unchanged. Looking at the two women. There should be no other changes, and the injury has not worsened. But the exclamation of the girls just made Yang Chen a little uncertain, so he subconsciously stretched out his hand, grabbed the nearest Sun Qingxu's jade wrist, and began to examine her pulse carefully. Yang Chen's actions caused the women around him to laugh, but Yang Chen still didn't understand why the women were exclaiming. Was it just because the two girls became younger? In fact, there was no need for the face-retaining pills. People with cultivation bases like them could achieve the same effect by directly using some spirit medicines. It's just that these spirit medicines were quite rare, but with the abilities of these people in front of him, no matter how precious the spirit medicine wasn't it a matter of saying a few words. Sun Qingxu's pulse was all normal, except that her injured meridian still maintains that kind of injury, there was no other change. Yang Chen breathed a sigh of relief, as long as nothing happened. Then, he reached out to Zhanxian. In the presence of so many people, he has not yet reached the point of unscrupulously using his spiritual awareness to probe the bodies of the two women. Zhanxian was trying to put up a little bit of resistance, especially in front of so many elders, but Yang Chen seemed to be very persistent and she hesitated for a while, letting Yang Chen hold her jade wrist, a red glow appeared on her face. Zhanxian's skin also recovered the tenderness of her youth, holding it in his hand, the slippery feeling made Yang Chen a little bit entranced. When he first held Sun Qingxu, Yang Chen didn't care. He always treated Sun Qingxu as a little sister and he didn't have any ambitions. But now holding Zhanxian, he had a different feeling from Sun Qingxu. In front of so many elders, this was not appropriate. Yang Chen quickly suppressed the thoughts in his heart and focused on checking the pulse, fortunately no one could see it. After a while, Yang Chen could finally be 100% sure that Zhanxian had no effect on the injury, except for the recovery of her appearance after taking the face-retaining pill. As it was a face-retaining pill, without any side effects, except to restore the best moment of appearance, there was no other effect. In Yang Chen's eyes, it was indeed a kind of pill with extremely uneven input and output, so these medicinal materials were enough to produce the same amount of questioning in her heart pills. After confirming the efficacy of the medicine, Yang Chen didn't understand why the masters of the Daching stage and Yuning ancestors all made such exclamations, even his other two fiancés, his master Gao Yu and senior apprentice sister Gongsun Ling. He didn't understand, but obviously it's not a good time to ask clearly now. Didn't he see the fiery eyes of the girls as if they were going to swallow him alive? Yang Chen was not a dumb person and knows when to do what. The effect of this pill is still barely okay. Yang Chen could only smile a little wryly and gave such an evaluation of the women. Barely. Sun Qingxu's master, Elder Hua Wanting, directly shouted in a tone that Yang Chen hadn't even expected, "Is this still okay?" Elder Hua was the first to jump out, followed by all the ladies, looking at him with a monster's eyes. That kind of gaze reminds Yang Chen of a beast that has seen food without having any hesitation. "I want one pill." The island master said more directly and domineeringly than Elder Hua Wanting. "You say your price." As soon as the voice of the island master fell, the same request immediately evoked everywhere. "I want one too. I also want one. I want three." Facing the group of requests, Yang Chen looked inexplicable. This pill, was it so popular? Yang Chen had no way to understand the madness of the girls. "That's right, it's crazy." Even the island master, whose words could make people tremble, and Elder Hua Wanting, a master of the Daching stage, it's actually useless for them to get pills which could only change their appearance with their cultivation base. There was no such thing as a master of the Daching stage, and no demeanor of the island master of the Green Jade Immortal Island. This situation was really unbelievable. How could this face-retaining pill make these high-ranking women so crazy? Just because they could change their face. In Yang Chen's opinion, the reason why Zhanxian and Sun Qingxu were a little better than before was that in addition to the effect of the face-retaining pills, after the pulse-calming powdered medicinal pill diverged their spiritual power, they were soaked in the Four Seas mysterious coral liquid for dozens of days. For a certain reason, the more impurities in the body that were removed, the better the natural skin performance would be. This was quite normal. But it's not like this, right? Seeing how the women looked, if Yang Chen didn't agree, he wouldn't be able to pass the situation, making it difficult for Yang Chen to refuse for a while. Ahem. The palace master understood the women's mentality better than Yang Chen and made 2 coughs in time, attracting the attention of the women. Everyone should stay calm. Seeing everyone looking at him, the palace master gave a light cough and slowly said, "It is not difficult to find Yang Chen for alchemy. The cooperation of several of our sects is also not so easily broken. In this way, everyone should first listen to the medicinal materials needed for this pill and then go back and get ready to talk about it." Although the head of the palace master did not explicitly say that Yang Chen would still need compensation for alchemy. But asking everyone to prepare medicinal materials, it was a brief reminder to all the ladies. Except for Yang Chen's fiancée, the other women immediately remembered the rules of asking for alchemy. They could not help but be startled. Yang Chen was not an alchemist who could just agree to help others to make alchemy. This was the only 5th-grade alchemist in the mortal world. According to the public statement of the Pure Yang Palace, it would take 25 years to make alchemy once, and he was paid a lot. But since the head of the palace master said so, Yang Chen would definitely give face to everyone, there was no doubt about this. Needless to say, others, just the other 2 fiancés of Yang Chen, must also require some. At that time, Yang Chen only needed to refine them together. As for remuneration, it would be whatever Yang Chen wanted. Women could pay any price for their looks, even for women who were masters of the Daching stage. At this time, everyone had consciously put aside any rewards and other things and only wanted the pill. What Yang Chen wanted was only trivial. In the eyes of the palace master, the performance of these women was like handing over blank checks with no upper limit to Yang Chen and the Pure Yang Palace. This was a good thing. How could the palace master be unhappy? "What medicinal materials are needed, tell me?" Elder Hua urged without waiting for a moment to pass. "I'll have someone prepare it right away." Ginseng, Polygonum multiflorum. Scutularia, Panax nota ginseng, Acanthopanax antichosis, Angelica dahurica, Befengzi. Fangfeng, these will be enough. Yang Chen reported the required medicinal materials almost without exception. All the girls were engraving on jade slips with their spiritual awareness. Of course, there are a few people who don't need to record. Gao Yu Gongsenling, Zhanxian and Sun Qingxu, they don't have to worry about not remembering. But the medicinal materials mentioned by Yang Chen, the expressions on the faces of the women became more and more relaxed. They were all ordinary medicinal materials, and they were not unbearable things to obtain. But Yang Chen's words caused all the women to lift their hearts to their throats at the same time, for fear that Yang Chen would say something that could not be done. Fortunately, Yang Chen just added an explanation: "You must wait a bit longer." The age of the medicinal materials was of course the longer the better, at least in the eyes of the women. Needless to say, they would follow Yang Chen's supplementary statement. Subconsciously, the island master asked what kind of maturity is needed to achieve the effects of Zhanxian and Little Shu. In a word, all the women's attention was drawn to Yang Chen again. Being stared at by so many women with higher low status and higher low cultivation base level, Yang Chen also regarded it as the first time and immediately replied, the two pills were made with medicinal materials with 10,000 years of maturity. Brushing, the whole scene quieted strangely, all the women seemed to lose their interest in talking and even stopped breathing. The scene was so quiet that if a needle dropped on the ground, the sound could be heard. After a while, Yang Chen heard a sound of people breathing in the cold air. 10,000 years, you are really something. The island master finally smiled bitterly. It was beyond the control of the island master from smiling bitterly. Even if she was the island master of the Green Jade Immortal Island, there was a certain amount of pressure to come up with such a variety of medicinal materials. If it was for the questioning inner heart pills, there was definitely no scruples, but just for the face-retaining pill, the island master has to consider the thoughts of other elders. What will the effect be if the maturity is lower? Elder Hua also fell silent, but she still asked hopefully, for example, if it has 1,000 years of maturity. This question was something all the women wanted to know. Everyone pricked their ears to listen, for fear of missing a word. No one dared to speak, for fear of disturbing Yang Chen. Faced with such a situation, Yang Chen couldn't help but sigh. Even when discussing dealing with the greatest heaven sect, he didn't see them being so cautious and paying so much attention. The specific effect is not very clear, but I guess that the effect of the pill can only last for hundreds of years. Yang Chen gave a relatively cautious answer after thinking slightly. What about after the effect of the pill? Elder Hua asked hurriedly again, with a lot of joy on her face. It's not easy to get the 10,000 years medicinal materials, but it's easier to find the 1,000 years medicinal materials, but there was one more key question. Elder Hua immediately asked, would there be any decrease in effect if I take it then? Not only Elder Hua, but the other girls all had the same relieved expressions. However, Elder Hua's question was definitely the most fundamental point that everyone cared about, and it was forbidden that the women do not take it seriously. That's naturally useful. Yang Chen replied without hesitation. This kind of pill was a long-term beauty treatment and it doesn't exist after taking one. But was it really worth using so many thousand-year medicinal materials to refine the face-retaining pills? Yang Chen's answer directly detonated all the women present. If it weren't for their own identities, maybe they would cheer. But even so, everyone was smiling, and the temperature at the scene seemed to have collectively increased by several degrees. Yang Chen, when can you start another refining? The island master was already feeling a little bit unbearable and immediately couldn't wait to ask this question. If you're enjoying the content, please give it a like, comment, and subscribe to Fantasy World for more. Chapter 459. This was obviously an additional opportunity for Yang Chen to make alchemy in addition to the refining once in 25 years. Regarding this, the palace master just now seemed to have expressed his views, so Yang Chen would not refuse. When you have all the medicinal materials and solve the problem with the greatest heaven sect, this junior will immediately make a refining of the face-retaining pills. Yang Chen replied quickly, without any hesitation. The medicinal materials needed to be gathered together, this was natural, it was impossible for Yang Chen to gather the medicinal materials by himself. As for solving the matter with the greatest heaven sect, this was even more necessary, not to mention the Pure Yang Palace, Green Jade Immortal Island and Blue Cloud sect also attach great importance to this. The reason why the island master and Elder Hua have stayed in the Pure Yang Palace was firstly for the convenience of communication and secondly, to prevent accidents. The greatest heaven sect's subsequent actions were predicted by the two major sects. Before the third letter was issued, all kinds of spearheads were directed at the Pure Yang Palace. If it wasn't for the island master being here, maybe they would have already attacked. This was also the reason why when Yang Chen and the palace master were discussing the current situation in the greatest heaven sect, they did not hide it from the island master. The conversation between the two basically belonged to the content that could be known by the island master. The Pure Yang Palace paid the price to buy news from the Wine Immortal House, this was a normal transaction. Almost all sects had similar transactions with the Wine Immortal House. As for the questioning inner heart pill helping the Wine Immortal to hit the threshold of the datching stage, it was easier to explain. The questioning inner heart pill was the price of the transaction between the Pure Yang Palace and Wine Immortal House, and only this price could be exchanged for such careful service from the Wine Immortal House. Speaking of it, those experts who gathered did not rush to Pure Yang Palace in one fell swoop to bring the disaster of destruction to the Pure Yang Palace, they still had to thank the island master and the others for their stay in the Pure Yang Palace. Even the greatest heaven sect had to weigh the consequences of attacking the Pure Yang Palace at this time. If it was the Pure Yang Palace alone, it would have been attacked by now. The greatest heaven sect had the previous foreshadowing and there would be no worries, but if they dared to take the initiative in front of the island master, that's another matter. If they don't want to cause a melee among the three major sects, the greatest heaven sect must be honest and not dare to act rashly. Now that the third wave of notes has been issued, the greatest heaven sect no longer had a righteous reputation. Naturally, the crisis was resolved. Although even if the opponent attacks, the pure Yang Palace was not without the power to resist, but this kind of thing still has to be considered as a big favor. Helping to refine a furnace of the face-retaining pills was the best payment as a return. This furnace of the face-retaining pills. The palace master even thought about it, except for the raw materials, it would be without any compensation. On the one hand, it was to repay favors, on the other hand it was to advertise. Yang Chen didn't know why the girls were so crazy, but the head of the palace master was very clear about it. It was estimated that no woman would not want permanent youth. Especially in the Green Jade Immortal Island and Blue Cloud sect, these two sects were mainly for women. Even the island master and Elder Hua would want to use the face-retaining pills, were they afraid that others would not buy it at a high price. The face-retaining pill was simply another huge profitable business for the Pure Yang Palace after the second great inner sensing pills, and there was no need to worry about lack of customers. If they took one pill every 100 years with so many women add up, what would be consumed was by no means an ordinary amount. Naturally, Yang Chen, who was the alchemist, would definitely become the most popular alchemist in this mortal world. Which sect has no female cultivators? As long as there were female cultivators, there would be a market. The face-retaining pills were used by female cultivators, the second great inner sensing pill, and the questioning inner heart pill was for all the cultivators. Was there any alchemy sect that was more powerful than the Pure Yang Palace? Even in the heyday of the Pill Cauldron sect, it was impossible that so many sects would crave for their refining at the same time. The women who got the guarantee were naturally happy, and all of them began to send people to collect the medicinal materials, with Yang Chen's promise. After no longer worrying about the face-retaining pill, everyone's focus has returned to the situation of the greatest heaven sect this time. How will the greatest heaven sect respond this time? Elder Hua has been waiting for the news to come back, but now he has just sent the note to the greatest heaven sect for only 10 days, and everyone could only wait until there was feedback. I'm afraid there are several high-level officials in the greatest heaven sect who will pay for it. The island master was the head of the Green Jade Immortal Island. Naturally, she also knew how to minimize the loss when encountering this kind of thing, and also to maintain the reputation of the sect. It could be said that they could come up with one or two important characters and let them take the blame, then resolve the matter. Gu Qianyi, who was captured alive, was definitely going to pay. The greatest heaven sect had to give up on Gu Qianyi. They had to calm the anger of the three sects, one person did the things, and one person should pay for it. It's just a pity that the life of a dashing stage master only had to be traded with the cultivation base of two Jitan stage juniors, which was really a bad loss. It's just a backlash before. It was estimated that they would introduce a heavyweight to let him admit that he had concealed the facts without the consent of the sect, take the blame and step down and accept the punishment of the sect, and then the greatest heaven sect would pay a certain amount of compensation to the three sects, thus ending this thing. Disobeying of the sect rules should not be too light, at least the level of cultivation base being abolished, otherwise it would be difficult to block the mortal world's leisurely mouth. As the largest sect, they must have the style and demeanor of the largest sect to deal with their own people, they couldn't be soft. The reputation that has been damaged, of course, could only be remedied bit by time and re-establish the reputation of the greatest heaven sect. This was a long process and wouldn't be effective in a short time. In any case, the greatest heaven sect has suffered heavy losses this time. The life of a dashing stage master, an elder class expert would be deposed and the sect's reputation was discredited. This time, the blow to the greatest heaven sect was no less than that of the sect gate explosion that year. They just don't know which guy would be unlucky and would be pushed out. It was estimated that it would be someone who has failed in the struggle for power, but as long as it was a struggle, there would be losses. The losses inside the greatest heaven sect were far more than those seen outside. Speaking of the two major sects, they were already very satisfied. They have fought with the greatest heaven sect for so long, and the ones who really have the upper hand were those with Yang Chen. The secret plane incident was counted once, this time was the second time, and the two major sects were also unsatisfied with the results this time also. That's the only way. Yang Chen was a little disappointed. Although he knew that the island master was right and the situation would basically develop in this direction, he still felt unwilling. Two of his fiancées were wounded like this and he didn't want to let them off so cheaply. What do you want? Although Elder Hua was irritated, she was also a person who knew the importance. Hearing Yang Chen's disappointed tone, she couldn't help but ask angrily. It's already like this, still not satisfied, what else did he want? Yang Chen looked up at the crowd, turned to the palace master, and then turned to Elder Hua. After a glance, he finally fixed his gaze on the island master. The island master immediately realized that Yang Chen had something important to say. With a wave of her hand, the island master ordered her entourage, "You all leave first." But the example of the island master, how could Elder Hua not know what to do? She also waved away the people around her. Only the palace master, the island master, Elder Hua and Yang Chen were left at the scene, and even the 4 fiancés of Yang Chen retired and went to the courtyard of Gao Yu to talk together. The palace master, the island master and Elder Hua placed a restriction around them and then focused on Yang Chen. "Now there is no one else." Elder Hua said quickly. "This old woman can represent Sect Master Lu with full authority. Yang Chen, if you have anything to say, just say it. It can't be so simple that we will let the greatest heaven sect get away so easily." Yang Chen reiterated his thoughts again. "They just abandoned Elder Hu and a scapegoat, it's not enough. Do you have a good way?" When the island master talked about business, she couldn't say anything calmly. "Didn't the Wine Immortal House have news that a group of experts have gathered thousands of miles away from Myking Mountain?" A sneer appeared on Yang Chen's face. 70 or 80 Yuning stage ancestors and hundreds of Jitan stage masters, presumably even the greatest heaven sect, will feel such a lose, right? Listening to Yang Chen's words, the 3 decision makers suddenly began to ponder. Everyone basically knew the existence of these people. The island master and Elder Hua also guarded against these people's attack on the Puryang Palace, that's why they stayed, but they haven't thought about eradicating all of these people. Everyone knew that these people were members of the greatest heaven sect. If they were eliminated, it would surely cause the greatest heaven sect to counterattack. It would have been possible for the greatest heaven sect to pay a certain price and settle the matter, but then they would have to face the anger of the greatest heaven sect at any time. This didn't match with their original plan. Everyone was estimating the greatest heaven sect's reaction after doing this and the wider implications that it may bring. No one thought that Yang Chen would be so bold, taking the life of a daching stage elder and abolishing the cultivation base of another elder level master, even assassinating these people. However, this also reflects Yang Chen's concern for Zhanxian and Sun Qingxu. Those who dared to hurt them, Yang Chen not only wanted bloody revenge, but also got involved himself. This thought was really rare, at least the island master and Elder Hua felt that their disciples did not choose the wrong person. But so many masters being killed, won't it stimulate the greatest heaven sect too much? The island master groaned and said slowly. "The greatest heaven sect?" Yang Chen asked in a pretended manner. "Why does this concern the greatest heaven sect? Which of these people is from the greatest heaven sect?" The 3 decision makers were taken aback and then all reacted. These people were either little-known disciples of the small sects or rogue cultivators. What relationship did they have with the greatest heaven sect? Even if they were all dead, it would not be the turn of the greatest heaven sect to jump out and gesticulate, right? The greatest heaven sect had arranged many hidden cultivators outside the sect, but they also had a fatal flaw. That was if there was a loss of these people, the greatest heaven sect had no reason to make remarks about it. No one dared to move against them in the past, and they don't know who were the experts who were secretly arranged by the greatest heaven sect, but now that this group of people have jumped out, it would be a pity if they don't take advantage of it. In fact, the gathering of those masters this time was quite a secret. The people in the dozens of miles around the gathering place were all killed and it shouldn't have been discovered. I have to say that those people were also unlucky. It happened that a few disciples of the Wine Immortal House saw several different experts passing by in different directions, and it seemed that their target was that area. The people in the Wine Immortal House found it strange. After several high-level analysis and summary, a few Wine Immortal House disciples were sent to the area to inquire about news. However, under the deliberate blockade of the news from the Yuning stage ancestors, the result was naturally that they never came back. The loss of the disciple also made the people of the Wine Immortal House notice the abnormality. They dispatched a master who was proficient in invisibility and approached within a few miles, only then did he discover that the group of experts had gathered. And this time neither the greatest heaven sect nor these masters themselves knew that the situation had been leaked. The news from the Wine Immortal House was sent directly to the Puryang Palace, and only one copy was given to the Puryang Palace. There was no wind of it at all to other sects. Even the island master of the Green Jade Immortal Island and Elder Hua only learned about it after the palace master told them. Originally, they wanted just to guard against these people and did not intend to retaliate against them. But now that Yang Chen mentioned it, it made the 3 of them wake up like a dream. If this group of people were ambushed and killed, the greatest heaven sect would probably cry even when they fell asleep. It's not so easy. The palace master thought of something, frowned and said there is always a reason to do it, right? Without a reason, wouldn't it be criticized? The greatest heaven sect will use this as a reason to attack us to defend the weak. What would we do then? How can there be no reason? Yang Chen suddenly laughed, the captured elder who didn't use the power of the sect this time and gathered these desperados privately, except for the desire to obtain the secrets of this disciple, they also wanted to seize the property of Myking Mountain in the Pure Yang Palace. After Elder Hu was arrested, he confessed to these arrangements, so the Pure Yang Palace could only act first for self-protection. Isn't that reason enough for this? To be honest, it's not very good. Elder Hua shook her head directly and gave a disdainful comment, but she added however, it should be enough to deal with the greatest heaven sect. The words of Elder Hua made all four people present laugh. Actually, if we can kill them secretly, even if the greatest heaven sect asks, we can also ask questions without admitting that we have done this. What can the greatest heaven sect do? Yang Chen also laughed, followed by a few more sentences. Secretly? It will be difficult. The island master frowned and shook her head. This old woman suspects that there is at least one strong old guy among them, it's hard to tell if we can hold him. The old guy mentioned by the island master was also the kind of ultimate force of the greatest heaven sect that Yang Chen knew, the dormant great elders. Since the other party intends to destroy the Pure Yang Palace, they naturally prepared a long time ago. It was quite normal for one or two great elders to appear. If they wanted to take the lives of these people, it was indispensable that the Blue Cloud sect and Green Jade Immortal Island would also automatically use their own great elders. Anyway, the great elders who do their work afterwards would surely face their tribulations, and as long as they could kill these 70 Wielding stage ancestors, the two sects would not lose. Perhaps, the junior has something that can help. Yang Chen once again said something that surprised everyone. If you're enjoying the content, please give it a like, comment, and subscribe to Fantasy World for more. Chapter 460. Creating an alibi. Do you have a way? The island master's eyes lit up for a while, but at the same time, there was also a trace of deep fear hidden within it. If the greatest heaven sect used those old guys, few people could be compared with those guys by strength. Unless the Blue Cloud sect and Green Jade Immortal Island also sent their own treasured great elders. Even so, it could only be said that everyone would be fighting evenly and maintaining each other's invincible situation. But if they wanted to kill these people silently, that's absolutely terrifying. Those who could kill the great elders of the greatest heaven sect today, they would be those who could kill the great elders of the Green Jade Immortal Island or Blue Cloud sect tomorrow. The island master couldn't help but become afraid. Thinking about it, what terrifying thing was it that could kill a daching stage master anytime and anywhere without him knowing it? The island master looked at Yang Chen with a different gaze because of this. However, Yang Chen was on her side now. If Yang Chen could kill a supreme elder of the greatest heaven sect silently, it would make them feel more heartbroken than killing dozens of Wielding stage masters. This one great elder alone was equivalent to 1/10 the strength of the greatest heaven sect. Yang Chen naturally knew how shocking his words were, so he immediately explained with a smile, you seniors may be curious, how could this junior arrest Hu Qianyi alone? Didn't Wang Yong and Gi Shanyu act together to arrest him? Elder Hua was shocked when she heard this. Hu Qianyi was captured by Yang Chen alone. She had always thought that it was the two daching stage masters from the Pure Yang Palace who had joined forces to capture Hu Qianyi, only now did she know that there was another hidden story. The island master was also somewhat skeptical. Both Wang Yong and Gi Shanyu have just been promoted to the daching stage only 100 years ago. But Hu Qianyi was a veteran daching stage master, at least he had reached the mid to late daching stage level, and it was obviously impossible for him to be captured alive by too early daching. But the fact happened before her eyes, and she couldn't help but have to believe it. Only now did she know that Yang Chen did it alone. This was even more shocking than the combination of two early daching stage masters. It was not a fantasy to capture an expert in the middle or late stages of the daching stage. But the palace master of the Pure Yang Palace nodded silently, acknowledging all this. The Pure Yang Palace was now a partner of the two sects, so it was impossible to lie about this kind of thing. How did you do it? The island master couldn't help but ask, she didn't even notice that there was a little tremor in her questioning voice. By the luck of this younger generation junior, I got a pill recipe for a certain medicinal pill. Yang Chen replied honestly. It seemed that this was not convincing enough, and he added it's very overbearing, crushing the pill will silently allow a daching stage master to not be able to move, and within a dozen breaths, it could dissipate his spirit power. Hu Qianyi's situation has been seen by the island master and Elder Hua, and it was indeed as if all his spirit power had been dispersed. Not only Hu Qianyi, but also Zhanxian and Sun Qingxu. However, the situation of the two women was different, their spirit power was dissipated, which just happens to not cause further injury to the meridians, but was a blessing in disguise. It was estimated that the two women were affected by Hu Qianyi. When Yang Chen dealt with Hu Qianyi, the two women were also poisoned by this pill. Such a process was reasonable, otherwise, with Hu Qianyi's ability, if the two women's spirit power could be dissipated with such precise control, the meridians would not be injured like that. This pill is so powerful. Elder Hua also paled. A daching stage master's spirit power could be dissipated within a dozen breaths, how could ordinary daching masters stop this? However, this could also explain why Yang Chen captured Hu Qianyi unscathed. With this kind of medicinal pill, let alone Hu Qianyi, 10 of him would probably not be his opponents. How could others think of things that they didn't even know of? It is very great, but the raw materials for the refining are very rare. You need dragon bones, and it must be the bones of poisonous dragons. Yang Chen shook his head directly. I have only collected 3 bones in the mortal world and refined 3 pills, no matter how much I'm given, I can't make another. Yang Chen repeatedly emphasized that there were only 3, it was to reassure everyone. One couldn't do anything about it, this kind of thing was colorless and tasteless. No one knows when they would be hit, and if they were to always stay prepared against it, that was simply a nightmare. The medicinal materials used was dragon bones, this was a lot of peace of mind for everyone. The dragon clan have long since disappeared in the mortal world, where would they find the bones of dragons? Yang Chen had been in the East China Sea for a while, looking for submarine medicinal materials. Maybe by coincidence, he found some dragon bones. This was normal, but for them to believe that Yang Chen had countless dragon bones, they didn't believe it. Yang Chen said that there were only 3, and everyone believed it. The bones of the dragon clan, and it must be the bones of the poisonous dragon, was it so easy to get? With such a strong medicinal effect, it seems that only the pill made from the bones of the poisonous dragon was capable. Ordinary medicinal materials, even if they were 10,000 years old, how could they have such a powerful effect? You used 1, and 2 more are remaining. The island master asked calmly. I used 2. The first one was tested by this younger generation junior. Yang Chen replied with a smile, the second one was to deal with Hu Qianyi. Is there an antidote to this pill? Elder Hua immediately discovered the problem keenly. Yang Chen used 1 to test the effect, but he was fine, and he was also fine with Hu Qianyi himself. There must be an antidote, otherwise he couldn't explain it. There is an antidote, but it is very troublesome to refine. This junior have insufficient skill, and it will take at least 20 years of hard work to refine. Yang Chen nodded and replied. This answer also caused the island master and Elder Hua to take in a cold breath. Yang Chen's lack of skill was a shortcoming, which was something no one could help. If it takes 20 years to refine the antidote, doesn't it mean that Zhanxian and Sun Qingxu would be such a waste for 20 years? However, after another thought, it was not the case. The injuries of the 2 women would be pretty good if they could recover within 20 years. They don't have the physical background of a master in the daching stage, and they couldn't even bear the effects of 2 strong medicinal pills. It seemed that everyone had nothing to worry about. There was only 1 in Yang Chen's hand, if it was used this time to handle the greatest heaven sect group, there would be no more worries about the pill. There was no need to consider future risks, so everyone's interest would naturally shift to the immediate matter. With such a pill, it was indeed possible to make this group of people disappear without others knowing it, but the other party was a master who was about to ascend, how could they hide from his spiritual awareness and get close to the group without being noticed? How did you use the medicinal pill, but you didn't poison yourself? Elder Hua was more curious about this. Yang Chen was obviously fine, could there be an antidote? As long as the whole body is sealed with beeswax to prevent the medicinal Kai from attacking you, it will be fine. Yang Chen lied without hesitation. Elder Hua understood how to seal the whole body, not breathing or being contaminated by the outside atmosphere was indeed very easy for a cultivator. The only difficulty was that it was troublesome to get close to the opponent. The supreme elders of the greatest heaven sect who they were now going to deal with were more powerful than any ordinary expert, and it was not so easy to hide from them. However, since Yang Chen was able to hide from Hu Qianyi, maybe there was really a good way to get close to these people without them knowing it and then apply the medicinal pill. This younger generation was lucky and got a magic weapon that can shield spiritual awareness. Yang Chen laughed and mentioned his trump card, giving the 2 masters peace of mind as long as you can get close to the group, the effect of the medicine can be quickly displayed. It's just a matter of time. But this guarantee from Yang Chen, it seems that dealing with those people was not so difficult. What could a group of masters who have lost their spirit power do, even if it was a peak daching stage master who was about to ascend? They could just send a younger generation junior in the foundation stage to go over and take care of them all. Everyone's spirits immediately lifted up. Now it was no longer a question of whether it would work or not, but how to do it more secretly, so that the greatest heaven sect had nothing to say. Generally speaking, this kind of thing could be dealt with by not admitting it even to death. You said that many of your masters died there, we don't know. When the greatest heaven sect gathered these masters this time, it was a secret operation. The Pure Yang Palace didn't know anything about what went on in their sect. No one could say that something happened thousands of miles away from the Myking Mountain and the Pure Yang Palace was responsible for it. As for the Green Jade Immortal Island and the Blue Cloud sect, that was even more nonsense. The sphere of influence of the two major sects, one was overseas and the other was tens of thousands of miles away. How could it be possible to silently kill an elder of the Greatest Heaven sect? It was impossible for the Greatest Heaven sect to slap themselves in the face and say that these people were sent to deal with the Pure Yang Palace, otherwise they would be even more unable to appease the Tao sects. They couldn't say anything, they could only suffer from this huge loss. There was no reason to blame the Pure Yang Palace. Moreover, with the strength of the Pure Yang Palace, it was impossible to do this. Even if the Green Jade Immortal Island and the Blue Cloud sect were to help, it was impossible to do such a thing in secret. There was no movement at all, but dozens of Yuning stage masters and unknowing number of elders were killed. When something went wrong, the Greatest Heaven sect could only look for the suspect. Just like the last time the sect gate was destroyed, there has been no suspect arrested yet. Although it seems that the Pure Yang Palace was the most suspicious, the Greatest Heaven sect had no evidence and would not believe that the Pure Yang Palace could do this. If the Pure Yang Palace really has such strength, why should it be necessary to unite with the Green Jade Immortal Island and Blue Cloud sect to directly attack the Greatest Heaven sect, which would be enough to uproot the Greatest Heaven sect? Anyway, as long as the three sects were asked, they didn't know anything. Since the Greatest Heaven sect was using a secret manpower arranged, they should check if anyone had leaked the secrets. The Island Master, Elder Hua and the Palace Master in charge of the situation carefully discussed the cause and effect and even simulated the situation that might occur afterwards and realized that there were no flaws, so it was decided. So, we still have to trouble Yang Chen, you have to take care of it. The Island Master said to Yang Chen. Yang Chen had the medicinal pill and a magic weapon to conceal and shield his spiritual awareness, so he was the best candidate to carry out this plan. No one dared to rest assured when it was replaced by someone else. The overbearing medicinal effect alone made people daunting. Other than Yang Chen, who knew better about that kind of medicinal pill. It could only be said that Yang Chen had to make another hard trip. After we arrange it, let's begin. Elder Hua said the same thing. She instructed Yang Chen and added another sentence after thinking about it. Pay attention to safety. If you can't do anything, it's important to get out first and keep them away temporarily. I'll take it next time. Anyway, we've already earned it this time. I don't want little Shu to be a widow before she gets married. Elder Hua was straightforward, but she didn't hide her caring thoughts. Yang Chen was her son-in-law now, even for son Qingxu's consideration, Yang Chen must be safe. This younger generation junior understands. Yang Chen bowed in salute, expressing his gratitude for the care of the elders. After that, the Island Master and Elder Hua led their people away from the Pure Yang Palace and returned to their respective sects. In the current situation, the Greatest Heaven sect did not dare to make a desperate attempt to destroy the Pure Yang Palace, and the Pure Yang Palace had no crisis of their sect being destroyed for the time being. There was not much need for them to stay here, they just had to go back. They could also play their roles in their respective sects so that the Greatest Heaven sect couldn't doubt them. In the final analysis, there was a proof of alibi. Since Yang Chen could do this by himself, there was no need for everyone to gather experts with great fanfare. If the Greatest Heaven sect were to make trouble unreasonably like this, it would just give the three sects another excuse. As for Yang Chen, of course he would use the excuse of retreating to refine pills, refining healing pills for his two fiancées, and at the same time refine the beauty pill for the girls. Just taking advantage of the accident of Zhanxian and Sun Qingxu, the name of the face-retaining pills was also spread out. There must be countless female cultivators coming one after another. All parties seemed to arrange readily, only waiting for Yang Chen to take action. News from the Wine Immortal house kept coming, the experts seemed to have gathered there quietly and never left. Of course, this does not rule out the fact that the people in the Wine Immortal house didn't find the other people leaving. A master at the Breathtaking stage, just bringing a space magic weapon, could enable him to take everyone away without them knowing it, and no one would find them. In the eyes of the palace master, Yang Chen's safety took first place. If the person was there, he could do it. If the person was not there, he would come back secretly, as if nothing happened. Anyway, the biggest loss would be that Yang Chen ran a fruitless trip. Yang Chen also understood the good intentions of the palace master, but he knew that those people were still where they were, and among them there was a master who was in the Breathtaking stage and could ascend. The Greatest Heaven sect still didn't have the idea of destroying the Pure Yang Palace, but the sect was still weighing against the decision. The three purities secret art's formidable spiritual awareness threat had already reached that area without anyone knowing it, even the supreme elder of the Greatest Heaven sect could not hide from it. The quarrel between the Island Master and the Greatest Heaven sect gave Yang Chen enough time. This time, the Greatest Heaven sect was destined to lose more experts. It was not known what kind of heartache the Greatest Heaven sect would feel after these people were gone. If you're enjoying the content, please give it a like, comment, and subscribe to Fantasy World for more.